All right, man. We're live and in color.
Nothing
So,
better than going live with the zombie man.
I know, man. It's good. It's another Saturday, another Friday night going live again. It's kind of become a tradition. I think you've done it with me in not the biblical sense, like about 3 times now.
It's always a good time.
Yeah,
So,
man.
what do you think about the state of this hobby right now? I mean, I did a video over the weekend. I went up to at my other place. There's a long time hobby shop, and it's the only one within hours of me. And I went in there, and the it was $950 a box for Prism football. $950 a box, like. What could you possibly pull to get your money back from that? Because even if you pulled one of the big rookies, I mean, you're still not going to sell it for, you're not going to make a quick profit on that.
It doesn't
I don't
make
know.
sense.
I mean, maybe, like everybody's seen that Mike Trout card, right? Autograph rookie 101, but you have to wait 7 years until it was worth that. You know what I mean?
Right.
So going out and buying a box of Panini football, especially football, I mean, football cards don't carry the value that you see a lot of other ones. In fact, young gun hockey cards are more valuable if you pull that, you pulled Connor McDavid special card, or what's the young guy today? Alexi Lava. Oh, I forget how to pronounce his name. Lavier.
Football guy.
You know who I'm talking about? He's supposed to be.
I know you're talking about,
be like a Sidney Crosby type of a player. And I've been buying up some, some hockey. Those young guns are tough.
It's just, I don't know, man. Like, I was thinking about this today, and it used to be just like beginning of this year and then last year, people would post, like, I don't know if you ever saw this on Facebook, but you would have people posting, like, whenever you had those people who'd go and, like, buy out a Walmart, like grab every box off the shelf, and people would like lose their minds and they go to these like Facebook groups and be like, oh, I got Topps 2018 update, $40 a box. People would be like, why do you have 70 boxes? People are like, you're like, what's wrong with you? But now, because people are so hard up to get some boxes, no one's complaining anymore. Like you said, the hobby's like completely crazy. Like people are totally fine with these guys going up and buying boxes for $20-$30 and then quadrupling the price within 20 minutes of getting home from the Target or the Walmart.
Yeah, I mean, why wouldn't you? I mean, even if I want those cards, if I find a box for $30 and I can sell it for $950, and I know that if I open that box, the chances of me making my money back selling them individually, I'm going to sell that box. I'll sell them all day for $950. It just doesn't seem like a good investment to me, especially, like I said, especially for football. Because, if you look at some of the star players, like let's take a Gronkowski rookie card, I mean, I have autograph rookie card, limited number, and some of his, better rookie cards. And I mean, they're not selling for much. They just, unless it's Tom Brady or once in a blue moon, some great player, they really don't sell for. Rob Gronkowski is the best tight end we've watched in recent years. And I mean, his cards aren't going through the roof. Neither are any of the others. So, a lot of the rookies will go crazy. And then if they don't pan out, or they end up being, just a little bit above average, or, like an all pro, but nothing super special. Their cards aren't worth anything outstanding. How are you getting your money back for these $950 boxes? I really want to know.
Hey, what's up, Doug? Thanks for hopping in here with us, dude.
Hey, Doug.
Appreciate it.
Hold on, I'm having a little bit of trouble.
No problem,
buddy.
That's my middle name. So, but yeah, I mean, I agree with you, John. I mean, it's like, I understand the argument you're saying is like, why wouldn't you do it? I completely agree. But then, like, there is no way you can make your money back as of right now. Like, it's impossible. Like, there's
So
because even
I mean, you pay $950. You pull one of the top rookie autographs in the box, right?
Right.
And what's it sell for? $100.
Right.
So you still have 850 more to go.
Well, like, and I don't mean it, and I don't say this in a negative way because I know Michael's not the only one who does this. But some of those exclusive boxes that you can only get from Topps, like the Sapphire editions or whatever. And I know you do some of this as well a little bit. But for me, the prices are getting to a point where and I'm like, and it goes back to what you're saying, like you might pull a Derek Jeter autograph or something, but that's like one in like 800 boxes. Like, how can you, to me, justify buying a small little stack of cards and then spend $125? I just don't get it. Like,
I mean,
and I just don't understand it.
Like I said, football in general just doesn't carry that kind of premium either. I mean, yeah, you can find some Mahomes and that'll sell for thousands. You can find Lamar Jackson's, some of his autographed rookies will sell for thousands, you know. But they weren't their rookie seasons. I mean, Mahomes didn't even play. Nobody knew how good he was yet.
Mm-hmm.
And Lamar Jackson, played sparingly his rookie season. So you still may have to sit on them, but like you said, what's the chances of pulling that?
Right. I mean,
one of them.
And like you said, even if you did, most of those cards, and I don't know how much Doug does all this, because I know Doug and I have kind of a different way of what we've done stuff in the past, like our hobbies. But I know that, like, even if you pull one of these like hot rookies or whatever, even if you pull one of the rookie card autographs, until you get it graded, a lot of times those prices can't even be matched. Like, people aren't buying it raw that price a lot of times. And we all know that it's like going to get you a 6 to 9 month turnaround minimum at PSA. So it's like, by the time, to go back to your point, a lot of these guys, football guys, don't hold their value very long. And if they do, it's like the upper echelon guys. You don't even know if that card's going to be worth anything by the time you get it back to even maybe get close to that money.
Yeah,
so
if you pulled a bunch of Joe Burrows a year ago, you were excited. Once he mashed up his knee, everybody's on there trying to do a fire sale, pretending that Joe Burrow is actually going to have any value in 6 months. He's not going to have any value retaining until he goes back and proves that his knee isn't affecting him. Lamont takes one bad shot, and those cards that you were trying to get tens on and drop for $1,500, they might even not even be worth the value of the price of getting him graded if he takes a nosedive. He's going to be a faint memory. I mean, granted, how many USA Mark McGuires did I have? Ask me and Todd McFarlane how much money we lost when steroids came out, and he had the magic ball that lost when Barry hit it, and my $200-$400 card turned into a $20 corners game card once. And it was revealed he was sticking the needle in his butt. But yeah, you got guys. I wish I learned it earlier in my collecting, where you get some of these hot guys and they're worth a penny, drop them. Just get rid of it. Go back to the card store you bought it from, and if it's $40 and he offers you 20, take that 20 and flip it into something else, because I can't tell you how many cards that I had over my years that aren't worth the paper they're printed on. But if I flipped them 30 years ago, I might be driving a more recent car than I am now.
Yeah, and I mean, you mentioned Burrow. I was like, I was just going to mention, like, he's out for the season, so you have to wait. The jury's still out on him. Justin Jefferson looks amazing, but jury's still out on him. Claypool, Herbert looks great, but are these guys, going to bring this kind of money this early?
Yeah, Hebet's cards are flying, and people are paying a top dollar because he's, they're really shooting some craps on him. He looks great. That last game the other night against Las Vegas, he looked really good. But, the money that they're dropping on a guy like him, it's like, I wish I had that extra money to drop on a guy that could turn around and be a flash in the pan. I'm just looking at the money.
Well, let's not forget, yeah, like Colin Kaepernick, he took his team to the Super Bowl his rookie season, right? And what are his cards worth? I mean, so you just never know. Some of these guys, they start off great and then they just drop off.
Yeah, the sports collectible store that I used to work for had him. They had 16 by 20s framed in a nice 20 by 24, and it would cost you $100 to get it framed. They couldn't get rid of a signed Kaepernick photo for under $100. They couldn't make it go away. And I was trying to pitch it like the frame is $100. Just buy it for the frame. Toss the photo in the trash. But because it was Kaepernick, people, oh, he's trash. He's this. He's 25, QBR rating. He stinks. And it's like, just buy it for the frame, dummy. Just buy it for the frame.
Hey, you remember when we used to chase Andre Ware rookie cards? I don't even think he played.
Kajana
Vince
Carter.
Young.
I was trading Kajana
Carter, yeah.
I wanted those JJ Stokes
out in preseason, and that was the end of that.
Well, like what I was thinking is, and I mean, and I'm not by any stretch of the imagination like a football guy per se, but it's something that I do notice because I do still pick them up from time to time in like collections. But with football, and you all can tell me if I'm wrong or not, obviously a lot of these guys that start out real big, they get hurt, they're never heard of again, and they like disappear. And it's like you're saying, they might be big right now, but they have one bad game, they get totally annihilated. That's it. I mean, you never see them anymore.
Hey, 2 years ago, Leonard Fournette looked like he was going to be the next great thing, and Kareem Hunt. Now you don't even hear of him really too much.
He can barely get touches in Tampa Bay right now, and
Le'Veon Bell's another one. When he was with Pittsburgh, he was unstoppable. And then he made some poor decisions, in my opinion, with his professional career. I mean, he even took a pay cut to go to the Jets. I mean, if you go to the Jets, I mean, that's like, no offense to any of my Jet friends, but that's like professional suicide. You know what I mean? I mean, you've never heard of Le'Veon Bell again. Now he's where'd he go? Kansas City, but he's like backup. And I mean, that guy was, when he was with Pittsburgh, he was awesome. I was loading up on his rookie cards.
I'm a Steelers fan, and I was crying through that whole thing. I was so upset when he left because he was making promises he was going to come back and do this and do that. And essentially, the contract that Pittsburgh offered him was almost the same as what the Jets offered him. But the Jets offered a little bit more guaranteed. So technically, paycheck to paycheck, he took a little bit less money. He made a little bit more on the guarantee. But he went in front of a team that they haven't been able to get out of their own way in 20 years. He wasn't going to do anything with them. And now Pittsburgh doesn't even want him back.
I think had he stayed with Pittsburgh, he would, I think he was a lot better staying in Pittsburgh for his legacy. But that's how quickly, somebody is out of your mind. It's like, for those of us who watched LaDainian Tomlinson, Priest Holmes, those guys were unstoppable in their day. But go look at their rookie card prices. I'm very undervalued. All these great guys. Marshall Faulk. So I just don't see spending $950 on a box of football cards.
Yeah, the prices of the boxes today. Like I saw the video right before I jumped in where you guys were talking about like Jason with a guy going in a Target. And I belong to a lot of these groups too, where, somebody goes in a Target and wipes the shelf and then takes pictures of their carriage in Target while they're walking around trying to flip as many boxes as they can before they hit the register. And, some of the prices these guys are asking, it was just crazy. I mean, I collect a lot through the mail, autograph stuff, but, watching some of these guys, it's to the point where they're taking pictures of Pokemon on the shelf, asking if there's anything worth grabbing because there's nothing out there.
Right.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's the thing is, it's insane because like if you're in any kind of like I'm in a couple local Indianapolis, Facebook groups, that do ball cards. And like you just said, Doug, it's like legitly they're taking pictures of the shelf and then of their cart. And then they already have the stuff sold before they even get to the checkout. And then when they don't sell, they go home, they stack it all up on their table or the couch, and they take a picture of it and then say, $60, but they just spent like 30 minutes ago 20 for it. And people are buying it up. Whereas before people would like shout them down publicly, like, you're robbing you're robbing people blind. You just bought this at not Kmart, that's like 1987, but like Walmart, you just bought this at Walmart 20 minutes ago. Now you're charging $40 more. But, people still buying it. They're going to spend the money because they want something to crack open that you can't find it. And they're going to spend the money. They might complain, they might whine, they might moan, But at the end of the day, these guys wouldn't be doing it if they ain't making money.
It's you. I mean, to tell you how
I want to,
just to tell you how desperate it's gotten. There was a guy in one of the groups who had a pack of, I think they were Donruss? They were Donruss football, 5 cards a pack. They're Dollar Tree packs. They're dollar store packs. He was trying to flip them for $3 a pack. People were buying them because there's nothing out there. There was a guy that had a picture of a cot at Dollar Tree that had the physical boxes that these things were contained in. And I don't know whether he worked for Dollar Tree or not, but he took a picture of the cot is the guy who put them. He's trying to flip them on the cot. And it's like, you're trying to flip Dollar Tree packs of cards? Is that how desperate it's gotten? But people started laughing, and I love to remind them that only a few months ago, 2020.
I'll be right back.
Yeah, 2020 score football with Brady on the box. People were laughing at that. They're like, that is the pro set of 2020. It is a junk pile. Nobody wants it. Nobody will buy it. Well, 2 months later, when there's nothing left, they're buying it for $40 for a blaster box or $60 for a blaster box. The same was with when out for NBA, when you still had Optic and Mosaic out on the shelf. Everybody laughed at Contenders. Nobody wants that junk. Oh, wait a minute, it's the only thing left. Let me find out how much room is left on my credit card. Because I mean, there's now they go into Dollar Tree packs of Dollar Tree cards. And they're trying to flip them for $3, $4 a pack.
Well, the thing is it's supply and demand. I don't fault anybody who's selling these boxes. I would sell them too if I got my hands on them. It's supply and demand, and if you can do it, more power to you. It's just like from a collector's standpoint, and for those who may be newer to the hobby, it's like. Think it's kind of important for us to point out that that's these are unusual times, and you kind of got to be careful when you're buying, because I'll tell you some of the prices I see on eBay for some of these cards, and if you don't know any better, you don't realize they're selling them for 5-10 times. They're putting that price out there with maybe an offer price, but to buy it now that's way overvalued. And if you don't know any better, you might hit that buy button. And you pay 10 times the card what you should be.
Yeah.
But more, this is America. This is capitalism. And if you can, cards are worth whatever somebody's willing to pay you for them.
Yeah, and I mean it's crazy because even the players I collect, like I was talking to you all know, like I play like a lot of these like super low rung Japanese ball players nobody knows has heard about in 20 years who had a cup of coffee in in America. Like even sometimes these cards, like an insert card, like a numbered card, like before I could buy them for like $1 all day long. Nobody else is buying them because like who knows? Even those cards, I'm having to like actually bid with people, and it's like, what in the world's happening right now? Like some random like Fukudome card from the Chicago Cubs, like he's actually all of a sudden got some people following him, and like I'm having to get outbid, and I'm like, what's going on?
Yeah,
but it's just like you said, like sometimes. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, one thing that I didn't like about the hobby when I got back into it in 2014 is that, for us vintage collectors, if you wanted to go buy a second year, third year, fourth year, fifth year, Mickey Mantle or Clemente or Mays or Koufax or whatever, they still had value. People still wanted them, right? And where the hobby had come to is everybody wants the rookie card, and they make 3,000 of each player now. And then the second year card, you couldn't give away. Third year card, you couldn't give away. Fourth year card, you couldn't give away. They literally had no value, right? Like almost no value. And now with the rookie card prices skyrocketing, when you look at LeBron second year cards, Tom Brady second year cards, and now Patrick Mahomes will be that way. Now you're seeing some after years cards that have value. And I think that's a great thing. Right, it's not always just about the rookie card, because I've never been on that craze where I just want to have the rookie card and that's it. I throw everything else away. But that's where the industry I think had gotten to. So I think that's a positive, thing where beyond just inserts even,
Right. Well, I think it goes back to if you see what Scott wrote here, and it's true, and you mentioned this already before, John, is that if you buy the vintage guys, you don't have to worry about it. They're not going to get hurt. They're not going to get injured. They're not going to disappear next year. They're not going to make a bad decision going from the Steelers to the Jets, like you said. That's like career suicide. And so I think it makes sense, and I think that's the reason why I've heard you and many other people who've done this for a long time at like a higher level. You could take your money, like you said, and maybe dump it into a bunch of modern day rookie cards and hot prospects or whatever. Maybe you're going to be looking good in 7 years and you might get another Mike Trout type of guy, or you can spend that money on a Sandy Koufax or a Joe Montana or whatever. And these things are not going anywhere except up, and they can't hurt themselves. So unless they're found with a knife in their hand sent over a body, they're going to be okay. So, so I think it makes a lot of sense. If you're going to spend that kind of money, and you can put it in other areas where you're going to have a little bit more of a safety net, I guess, so to speak.
Yeah, I worry too about the possibility of some sort of almost like Ponzi scheme, right? Like these cards started taking off when people started touting them themselves and selling them themselves. So let's say that I'm a millionaire and you're a millionaire, Jason. And I call you up and I say, hey, I'm going to put this up for auction, and I want you to pay $400,000 for it. And that's going to hit the papers, and everybody is going to know that that's sold for $400,000. So then the next time it sells, what will it sell for? I mean, I kind of think that may have been done. I actually believe that that's how, like, the Mike Trout thing started. It getting so crazy.
And I think it's true, because if you think about some of these guys, like Gary V and some of these guys that are big dollar dudes that like all of a sudden mention one person's name, kind of like almost in passing, or just some ideas they're thinking about, and then the very next day those same cards are going through the roof. And like you have people like, and I don't mean this in a negative towards Phil Filmington or the other like 20 or 30 channels on YouTube that like doing the video the next day about prospecting and this new guy and this new guy and this guy's card and this, but that's a lot of what it is. It's like the dog wagging the tail wagging the dog kind of thing. And it's like a lot of that back and forth where like you just build up false, excitement, and then other people start talking, and then that card all of a sudden goes from like mid-level to like through the roof, and it's like not even a month's time that card becomes like a hot card. But for what reason? I don't know.
Well, that happens in the stock market too. Guys will have this penny stock, a company that's just a shell of a company, and they will put out newsletters and they will send them to investors by the thousands and tell them that this is the next big stock and it's only selling for this, and they put up charts, and then once everybody starts buying that stock up and it goes up $1, they dump their multi-million-dollar shares and they make their money, and then you're left with a penny stock that goes up and then it comes right back down.
Right.
Now I'm not saying that's the case here, but prospecting is fun. I remember back in the 90s, they would come out. I would read magazines. They would always tell you about the up and coming players, the ones to look out for, the draft picks and this and that, and it was a fun thing. Of course, back then you didn't have to pay $1,000 or $500 or even $100, to buy these guys that haven't even stepped on the field yet. So now it's getting a little crazy. So I do understand how people get wrapped up in that prospecting, because it's fun, and it is like kind of trying to buy that next Facebook stock, right? And you can get wrapped up in that. And if that's what you want to do, more power to you, because it is a fun thing to do.
But I think that when it used to be, and I mean, again, when I was, a kid, or even, 15 years ago when I first kind of got back into it all, I mean, the prices aren't what the prices have been in the last 9 months. So you can have a little bit more fun prospecting, and you didn't have to go sell plasma 3 times that week to try to do it.
For sure.
But, so now when you want to prospect, you got to sell plasma like, 3 or 4 liters or whatever, and then you might be able to get like maybe 1 card. So I mean, it takes, to me, again, I think that's the difference between looking at it as a hobby versus an investment. I think that's a lot of what this is. Like
for
no
sure.
matter how much I might get. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, no matter how much myself or anybody else might get into doing some selling just to kind of compensate for your collection and buy what you want with the cards you sell, I'll never be able to get to that mindset of it's being a business. Like, I want to learn how to make the money off these cards. It's purely hobby for me, and just to sell a little bit, just to keep it going, to have some, some extra, some cash, some liquid to buy the cards I want when I'm not using money for my house payment. But so many people, I feel like right now, have moved it towards, this is, like you said, like the stock market. This is extremely, exclusively another source of income. And I don't think I could ever get to that place.
Yeah. Well, if you want to do a good prospect, this is who you need to invest in. Shannon Ham.
Yeah. Back to the cardboard, of course, dude.
Well, I mean, I think the first investment show I watched, this guy was pumping up DeAndre Fox. This guy's going to be the next big thing. He's going to be the next thing. And it was really one of the first videos I saw. And at least the guy that I was watching was honest. He's like, look, the card's gone up a little bit. I'm not going to say I did anything with it, but he goes, but I've been heavily invested in this guy. And I looked him up. And I think some of his rookie cards were like 90 cents, $1, $2, because they were just released, like the rated rookies and stuff like that. But Jason is hitting it straight on. You got guys that the card's out, and who is it that puts out them at the combine? And some of these cards are $20 for a guy that he hasn't even been fitted for a pair of shoulder pads yet. He hasn't even signed his first sneaker contract, and these cards are going crazy. But I mean, when I got back, it just reminds me that last year, because that's the last time I was in an office setting. And I opened up I bought a few packs around the corner, and I pulled out a Jackson rated rookie. And this guy at work was like, oh, that's so cool, your Jackson. And I gave it to him. And the look on his face fell down, like, you're giving me a Lamar Jackson rookie card. And I looked at him, I said, I'm an autograph guy. If the money I'm going to spend on a Lamar Jackson autograph, I'm not having him autograph a card. I'm going to have him autograph an 8x10, a 16x20, a football, a trophy. I'm not going to have him autograph a card. So some of these cards, I look at it and it's like, yeah, that's where I looked it up on eBay. Of course, I wasn't stupid. If I could have flipped it for more than $10, I'd have kept it and sold it. Even while I was at work. But some of these, but at least he was proven. At least he had by that point. I mean, like you said, his rookie cards aren't technically his rookie cards, but he had shown some flash. But if you wanted me to pay $20 for a card of him while he was still riding the bench, no, thank you, no.
So let me ask you, John, real quick. So do you think, I mean, you obviously been doing this, like you said, you're probably one of the few guys who've done this since you were a kid and never really fully walked away from it, like a long period of time. From what I've gathered, you've pretty much dabbled your whole life in some capacity. I asked the guy who ran the card shop that I go to, Four Sharp Corners in the town adjacent to mine. He's been doing it as a business since the late 80s. He said that you always see these influxes of highs and lows and the market, the card market taking off and people spending the money that they had never had before. Then they hit lulls and all that. He goes, but now the kind of money you're seeing is unheard of. He goes, I've been doing it since, the kind of money being pumped in from all the directions we've talked about. It's something he's never seen before. So, I mean, do you see this something that people kept saying early in the summer, this cannot keep sustaining? The wheels are going to fall off. It's not going to keep going. But here we are. We're heading towards January, and it's still going full steam ahead. So, I mean, what's your thoughts? Do you have any insight or you're just feeling about any of this?
I do have a feeling. Let me just say that, there were 2 times in my life that I took long periods of time off, close to a decade. And I got back into the hobby in 2001. And then I took another lot of time off around 2005, and I didn't get back until 2014. And each time when I came back into the hobby, there were some serious changes to the hobby. You know, like you come back around 2000, 2001, all of a sudden there's card grading, there's memorabilia cards. You know, back in the 80s and 90s, you never wanted somebody to sign a card that devalued it. But in the 2000s, that all changed. And in 2014, when I came back into the hobby, I was depressed when I got back into the hobby because, you know, I'm a vintage card guy. And I know, you know, the older, more obscure sets and the good old players. And I'm finding these cards for so little money, right? When I got back in 2015. I mean, cards I thought, wow, these are selling for less than they were in 2004. And it was just crazy. Like, it was kind of depressing. And I'm like, well, you know, the young people, they're buying digital cards. They're actually buying digital cards and even digital sign cards, digital memorabilia cards. And I'm like, well, maybe nobody wants to, you know, actually have and hold anything anymore. It was depressing to me. And I remember I bought Mike Trout rookies, like from day one when I started watching baseball again. I'm like, wow, this is the best guy in baseball. This is the next coming of Mickey Mantle, right? And I started buying up his rookie cards, and I bought them for like $30. And I would have multiples of them, and I'd sit on them for a while, and then I'd want to buy some new cards, so I'd want to sell some of my doubles, and you'd sell them for $30 or whatever. They weren't going up in value, and so I'm like, well, you know what? I should just get rid of these because this hobby isn't what it used to be. I remember I paid $50 for his 2011 Topps update, and I thought that was an insanely high amount for what cards were selling for at that time. And so, you know, fast forward now, I mean, there are cards, and I've said it, I think last time we were live, I could have bought for 500. They're now 1,500, right? But I'm of the opinion that this is going to sustain. I think the only thing that will derail this is a major economic collapse. If the stock market goes back to 6,000, or we have another real estate collapse, if people don't have the money anymore, because there is some serious money being made and being paid. And you cannot have this many people investing this many thousands of dollars, and that just goes to nothing overnight. I don't see that happening. I really don't. I know a lot of people do, but I think this is going to sustain for a while unless the economy crashes.
Honest question. There's been a lot of people, you know, speculating, but I'm not as inside when it comes to production counts as you might be. Do you? These companies aren't dumb. They know what's going on. And I don't know if do you think they're going to go into like a level of overproduction? Do you think we might get caught up in something like that, where these guys, knowing that their boxes and cases and cards are being, you know, they're not the $20 blaster boxes anymore. They're going for $60 or whatever the case might be. There's no incentive to stop printing because their business isn't in the aftermarket like, you know, yours might be, or I, you know, we might be collecting in. Their business is just to sell and you know, get those cards out there and make the money. Do you think there's a risk of overproduction that's going to hit this too?
I think the overproduction is the great part, to be honest with you. When in 1989, you could own every rookie card and it wouldn't take you very long to get them. Now, you can't own every card. It's impossible. I mean, you can buy boxes. You can spend thousands of dollars on boxes and still not have the best rookie cards of that year. And I think it's the overproduction that's actually driving prices up because you want those obscure rookie cards that you don't have. And there's no way you can just go out and buy them. Like I said, in 1989, you could buy every single rookie card. You could walk down to your card store. You could buy them all and you're done. And there was nothing more to collect, right? You could put the set together. And there was no other excitement. Now there's all kind of 101s, 110s, colored parallels, inserts, refractors, you name it. And it's kind of fun. Like I'm working on this year's Mosaic football I fell in love with. And man, it's just endless. The number of different, different parallels and different versions of cards and all. If you want to get all the great players, just to try to put somewhat of a set together is insane. And that's just one product. And so I think the overproduction is different this time. I think the overproduction is good this time.
But do you like to? Let me ask you this. I mean, it's good for us as far as what you're saying is to try to have fun doing the collecting, trying to expand maybe different kinds of cards you wouldn't be able to get without buying extra boxes or packs. But like on the back end, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, are we going to be looking back and being like, I think, these card companies really just tops Panini to a lesser degree, maybe. And we're talking about baseball in particular, but whatever. Like, it's going to go back to, there's going to be like skids full of cards that we're going to have laying around or whatnot? Or do you think there's so many different varieties now of, like you said, parallels and number cards, inserts, and, chrome and this, that, and the other, that, yeah, there may be a crap ton sitting on skids somewhere in like Albuquerque, but people still going to spend the money. You're not going to feel the same hurt of like 88 Don or Us like we did nowadays because there's so much variety that there's so many different variations that you can still have fun with it and it'll hold some value.
Well, here's the difference, I think. Yes, there's going to be pallets of commons laying around, and we all have them, and they're just taking up space. I think the difference is this time, 20 years later, you're not going to have Craigslist loaded up with the same picture of everybody's garage, because everybody and their brother, whoever collected cards, has cases and boxes and sets in their garage, and they think they're worth money. And we all know they're not, right? I think the difference is I don't even know if people will keep them in pallets, in pallets this time around. You might just throw them away. I mean, the common cards are literally worth nothing. The common cards are worth nothing. Most even stars are worth nothing. They're worth something to us collectors. But if you are investing in this thing, what are you doing? You're looking for hits. You see all the time. Guys will go to a store, they'll open up, they take out the hits, and they give the cards back to the dealer, or they throw them in the garbage. Right. Because there's so many. How many Rob Gronkowski cards are out there?
A lot.
I don't know. This is like crazy, the insane amount. You look at just the rookie cards, just how many rookie cards they make of each player, and if he doesn't even make it to the majors, because we have all these prospect cards. And one of the things that I've always been frustrated with, and is like you would buy these sets, and this started back in around 2000 or late 90s, where they would have rookie or prospect heavy sets, and you put the set together, and you have 30 rookies, 40, 50 prospects and rookies in your set, and they're worth nothing. These are guys you never heard of before, except on this card. And that set is not, it doesn't, it becomes meaningless to you. It's not something that you cherish anymore, right? You're just, it's like almost annoying that you have these players, but you want the complete set, so you keep them in there, kind of thing. You know what I mean? Yeah.
I mean, I think I don't know if you see what Tony said. Tony's here with us. You see what Tony said is that,
hey, Tony.
The difference is, which I agree with, I didn't think of it like this, but I kind of alluded to it without really articulating it the way Tony did, was the difference is that the massive production is spread out between various products rather than in one or two products that Topps did back in the day, or Don Russ or Fleer. It's spread over the place. So he's saying, nowadays, like Topps can have his cake and eat it too, because they may be doing mass production, but it's not for just the one product. It's spread around, which I think when I hear it like that, I'm like, that makes sense. Because it's not just Topps 1989, Upper Deck 89, whatever. It's like there's 50 different products.
And that goes back to my point. Around. That goes right back to my point that I think it's a good thing for the hobby.
They smartened up a little bit where you look at some of those Topps cards, you go in a Target and you have the red border Target cards. And then you go to Walmart, and those same cards are blue border cards. You go to Walgreens, those are yellow border cards. And they did split that up quite a bit. But I mean, as a TTMer like me, if you want to throw away your commons, I'll give you my address, because that's that's how I live and die in the hobby. I'm less of a I'm less of a one-on-one. Yeah, I'm less of a one-on-one or jersey cards are nice, but I'd rather the base card so I can get it signed. But let
me tell you something.
I'll flip them.
Yeah.
I'll take those jersey cards and stuff like that and flip them to make my, just try to break even and make some of my money back.
Right. I think it's wonderful how many different products they have. I used to find it kind of annoying and overkill, but I think it's nice now because you know what? Like I said, when I was growing up in the hobby, you wanted to own every card, right? You can't do that now. And so that's not even an option. You don't even think about doing that now. So what you do is they make different products that target different people. So you can pick and choose what you like, right? If a lot of the older collectors, they like the heritage sets and those old ones, with the old school feel. And then a lot of the younger collectors, they like the shiny ones. And you can pick and choose now what you collect, and you don't have to feel bad. You don't have every card produced in that year. You know what I mean?
The one thing I will say, and I don't know how you all feel about it, is that, you have like a traditional, like a Gypsy Queen or an Alan Ginter, something that has like a really good looking picture. It's I feel like a good quality card. And, if you want to collect a set, or if you want certain players, they do those like super short prints or variations, and like it becomes like this chase, but it's not out of control. It's not like the one of ones or the golds and the silvers and the platinums and the nitroglycerin drops or whatever they create, cards where you can't ever find them or you got to pay through the nose. It's like they give you a little bit of a hunt. You have to hunt it down, but it's within reach to getting it. And I do like those kind of products that does that because I like the way I like to do a little bit of a chase because like I'm an Ichiro guy, I'm a Madden League guy, and a lot of times those guys will have variations in some of these products, but it's not so rare or hard to find that it takes the the piss out of it. You can actually enjoy it.
Yeah, and I mean, if you are a young collector, or you don't have a lot of money, or you just want to collect for the fun of it, they have products like Topps Big League or Topps Opening Day. Those are very affordable products. They're fun sets to put together. They have plenty of inserts and other things, to keep you rookie cards, to keep your interest. They're nice sets. I've always loved the Opening Day, and I like the Topps Big League too. So there's literally something for everyone nowadays, which I think is a very good thing.
Right, when you can find it.
When you can find it, right?
Right.
I can't. I'm a guy that boosted Topps Opening Day a lot, and again, not to as a TTMer, I have a choice. I could either buy a blaster box at Opening Day for $10, or I could open a box of Series 1 for $20. They're the same card. I'm not going to get the hit, if any hits, and the only it's the same photo, other than the Opening Day logo. Yeah, I'm not going to get any hits, but I'm not looking to buy that $50 blaster box. I need card stock for the season coming up. So when you got something like Opening Day, $10 for a blaster box, I'm in my glory. I'll sit there and I'll grab 3, 4, 5, and if I get anything out of it, if I get a rare card, great, that's awesome. But now I have the stack, 6 inches high, to get ready for the season coming up. And, and it makes the hobby affordable because, talking about prices on cards, like we've said, it's somewhat in a way, some of it's become unaffordable because, now if I want to get a blaster box, I got to drop $50. No, so I am glad that they do tier price wise and product wise, so many different cards like that.
So, I mean, kind of to piggyback off of that, because we're pretty much done with products, I think, for the year. I don't think there's much in the way of at least baseball until February. So, do you think with the way the world is right now and the way collecting is, do you see that Topps is going to have a lot of excitement behind it this coming year with so much uncertainty and so much this like, a lot of those players didn't get a lot of playing time, or they really end up, not performing well on the field. The rookie class didn't really get to do a lot. Or do you think it's going to be the exact same stuff that we've been going through the last 9 months? It's just carrying over to 2021. Not
to interrupt. I got to run. I got a dinner call. So.
All right, Doug. Hey, man, it was good talking to you, brother. We got to do this again.
Thank you. Thank you for the invite.
Good seeing you.
Yeah, you're welcome, brother. See ya. So what do you think, John?
Well, Jason, I'll tell you, I think it's going to continue. And, you know, the games are different today than they used to be. And what I mean by that is, did you ever see a rookie hit 50 home runs? Have you ever seen this many rookies in baseball play this well? Have you ever seen, in another era, rookie quarterbacks come in and take their team to the Super Bowl or, you know, be an immediate sensation? And in basketball, you know, there weren't a whole lot of rookies that came out and were just superstars. This is all changing. I mean, I don't know if it's, I don't know what's going on, what they're eating, but these rookies coming out, they make immediate impact. I mean, when I was growing up watching football, a rookie would never be good. There was no rookie quarterback that would be good. They all had a learning curve to go through. None of them were good. You know, it took them 2-3 years. In fact, if your starting quarterback went down and you had your rookie starting, really, you would be like, okay, well, it's our next 3 years are rebuilding years. You know, you would feel that way. It wasn't until I remember Big Ben when he had to fill in for Tommy Maddox and he won like 12 games in a row and they went to the championship game. That was like the first time I remember watching. Well, I should back up. Dan Marino was the first rookie quarterback I remember that actually was really good, and Peyton Manning was pretty good too. But you know what I'm saying? It was rare.
Sure.
You know, it was rare. And now these rookie quarterbacks come in and they're pretty good from day one. And in baseball, it's just insane. You know, from 1964 till 90 or 91, when Cecil Fielder hit 50, 3 guys did it, right? You had 1964, Willie Mays hit 50. In 1977, George Foster hit 50. So it wasn't done from 64 to 77, and then not again until 90 or 91 when Cecil Fielder did it. And now rookies are doing it. You know, it's just pretty insane. Throughout baseball, how many guys threw 100 miles an hour? Now you have scrubs throwing 104, 102. You know, guys that aren't even really good pitchers. You have 90-mile-an-hour curveballs. I mean, you have 85-mile-an-hour off-speed pitches. It's just like insanity. You know, I don't know what's going on. It's like when I first started, I kind of got out of watching baseball for a while. But when I started watching again and seeing how hard these pitchers are throwing, I actually was wondering if they changed the ball or maybe they're inflating the radar gun or something because I couldn't believe that every pitcher threw that hard, you know?
Right.
It's just kind of insanity.
Well, to kind of go, well, what you were saying is true because, I mean, obviously I've really only, you know, watched baseball consistently, and like about 2017, 18, to what you're saying, to your credit, is that all these rookies coming out and everybody would be like so hard up on them, and I'm like, they're never gonna take off to the level you think they're gonna take off. It's just not possible because history tells us that's not real. It's not gonna. You know, it takes years for them to develop and to really, you know, be able to really make a huge impact not only on the sport but in the hobby. But since about 2017 and onward, you have a rookie class that's consistently not only performing based on hearsay and speculation, both on the field when it matters and also in the hobby, but it's consistently proving to be the fact that, yes, these guys are actually performing. Like, it's not just speculation. Like, they're actually doing really well, and they're not only just doing really well on the field, but in the hobby, they're not losing much ground. So, I mean, it's really surprising at how much they're staying consistent. Now, you know, way more than in the past. I mean, of course, you can talk about like a Vladimir Guerrero Jr. that like hit like a Mount Fuji peak, and then like he's in a big like Death Valley right at the moment, but he's still really young. But there's a lot more guys that's been in that high peak and that's only maybe dipped a little bit or stayed up there the entire time. I think there's more of those recently than there's the others. And I'm surprised by that, like you said, but they're coming out the gates swinging. But I also think I also think that because of that's becoming somewhat the norm, I think we might be fooling ourselves thinking, oh, this is going to be the new norm. These guys that have been touted a year or two in advance, they show up and actually perform. And then all of a sudden, when that stops happening, when they really do hit it's all just a bunch of, you know, fireworks and a you know, daffodils and, you know, sugar and all this, and then it all collapses, and then it's going to have us be shocked because we kind of got like conditioned to think, wow, these rookie classes are really something. They're not really dropping off. They're really staying consistent. So is that the new norm? Like you're saying, like, hey, like it's like consistently happening, or is this just like a flash in the pan and this can't sustain? Like, can it really be that the top 5 or 8 guys every year?
I think some of it's
they keep going.
I think some of it's going to drop off. I mean, you already see it with some, like Aaron Judge. You know, come out of like he was the next coming of Babe Ruth. Yeah,
right.
Chris Davis was hitting all those home runs in Oakland for 1 year, and then the next year,
Alfonso,
not very good at all. I mean,
Pete Alonso.
In order to be a hobby elite, you have to sustain, because we've had numbers of great people, great players who had an exceptional year or an exceptional several years. You look at Mark Fidrich, Fernando Valenzuela, Eric Gagne. I mean, you can come up with a list of guys in football: Jamal Charles, Chris Johnson. I mean, Chris Johnson, how good is he? You can't give his cards away. I mean, they don't have no value. Nothing serious. Jamal Charles the same way. He was the best running back in football for a while. Going back to Priest Holmes and LaDainian Tomlinson, all these guys, these are some of the best players in NFL history. And you're going to pay more for a prospect that you don't know how he's going to work out yet. Right? Derrick Henry, I'm sure, selling for more than all those guys. And he could be like a Leonard Fournette who comes up and then you really don't hear much about him after that. Only time will tell. But I can guarantee you that we're overpaying for a lot of these guys right now. But we won't know which ones until later.
Right, that's true. So I was watching. I don't know if you watched Silver Jackify's channel at all. I think his name's Joe, if I'm not mistaken. But let me ask you this. So he did his top 100 expensive cards for 2020. So if you saw, it was the Mike Trout was like the $54,000 card he had, and that was his number 1. So let me ask you, he gets through. He shows Babe Ruth, he shows Mickey Mouse, he's showing Clementes and Jackie Robinsons and all that stuff. But then the one that actually is worth the most money is the Mike Trout. So where are you as a collector, not to take off your prospector hat, but as a hobbyist, as a collector, does that ever factor into like just astonishment that somebody like Babe Ruth or a Mickey Mantle is actually playing not even second fiddle, but like fourth fiddle behind like a Mike Trout who hasn't really done a lot as far as like big numbers, as far as World Series and like even tasting the World Series or whatnot. And then, he has a lot of accolades on the field. I understand that. Or do you think, it is what it is? Like, that's just the reality of it. For me, it puts a little bad taste in my mouth, to be honest. That's my perspective.
Yeah, well, I have 2 things on that. Number 1, prospect cards have always been overpriced when the prospect's really hot. I mean, look what people were paying for Johnny Manziel autograph rookies. Guy never stepped on the field, and when he did, he was terrible. But he was selling for more than, a lot of great cards. So that has always been throughout the hobby. I mean, because it's like they're always priced like they're the next Tom Brady or they're the next Mickey Mantle. And if they're not, they have to come down. They have to. Right?
Sure.
Now, with Mike Trout, I was shocked. When I started buying his rookie cards, how cheap they were, to be honest with you. Because I think he is a once-in-a-generation player. I think he's the real deal. He's the all-around thing. That being said, does he deserve, his cards to be priced at now before he finishes? And like if he got hurt tomorrow and never played another never played another inning, right? Never had another at bat, would his cards still stay here? That's the question. Like, he still has a lot of game left to play. And if we find out that he gambled on baseball or he takes drugs, if he beats his wife, like anything like that, right? Because he's still playing. Things can happen. If we find out anything like these things, then it goes down immediately. Look what happened to Pete Rose. Everybody was loading up on his stuff. And it can happen. Barry Bonds. I mean, when we were buying Barry Bonds cards, you're like, wow, this guy, he's going to be the all-time home run leader. He was, personally, a man, and he was exciting to watch. It was like every time you watched him, he hit a home run. He was unbelievable. And to see what his card prices ended up, or Jose Canseco, so part of it is the personality and the legacy. Now, Mike Trout seems on point with everything. He seems like a good guy and all of that, but you just never know.
What's going on, guys?
Trout, as far as talent, is the real deal, man. He's
right.
The real deal. He's the best player in baseball.
What's up, Sean?
What's going on?
But like, so
good. How about yourself?
So let me ask you this. So I know Sean's in here, so I know he has an opinion about it too. So and I this is probably a hot take, but just so you all can see where I'm coming from. I'm not for sure what Wrigley Regulators his real name is. But he was saying that the Trout Mantle is not a great comparison, which I disagree with, because Mantle won World Series. Trout has not won he hasn't even been in the playoffs to my knowledge. So when people compare him to Mantle, it just irks me. Like it is, because I'm like, he hasn't done anything involving the level of respect that Mantle did consistently throughout his career. And people are like, well, he's the man, our Mantle's generation, or he's like, and I just don't see that. To me, it takes a lot more than what he's been doing, and I feel like sometimes it's a default now that he gets all the accolades. So I don't know.
I've never been on board with that. I mean, one baseball player can't win you World Series over and over and over again. I've never been of that opinion, because it's hurt a lot of guys. Like your Paul Molitors, your Robin Younts. I mean, guys that play in more smaller cities, and they don't get a lot of TV time, and they're not in the World Series. Yeah, it hurts them. And if you play for the Yankees, then you get to be 12 World Series. That's just the way it is. I think that. I mean, would it help his legacy? Absolutely, it would. But I don't think that makes him a lesser of a player, because he doesn't have any players around him to get to the World Series. I disagree with that theory.
I agree with John on this one. I mean, he's one player. He can't go out and play every position. I mean, take Mickey Mantle, as good as he was, and put him on any other team in the league back then. Are they winning championships? Probably not. I mean, does that take away from Mantle being as good as he was? No, not in my opinion. I think you could do that with about
went
any
to 2
superstar.
World Series.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if you use the championship thing, that's like, saying Satchel Paige, who's now his stats are coming over to the MLB stats with the new ruling. That's like saying Satchel Paige isn't as good as John Smoltz, I mean, or something of that nature, just because of the titles. I mean, if you look at the stats these guys rang up as individuals, that's all they can do is contribute as much as possible, put up their stats, and see what happens. The rest of their team's got to pull their weight, and sometimes it's management that gets in the way in spending. I mean, you take guys. But
you just gave a perfect
A's.
example. John Smoltz, those guys for the Braves, that great pitching staff. How many World Series did they lose? Should we judge them for that? Even though they were phenomenal pitchers?
They should totally be judged.
I definitely judge them.
They took your Madden away from you.
Yeah, I mean, look at
it's like
Oakland A's.
It's like wins for a pitcher.
So, what year was it that the Oakland A's went to the World Series under their new, where they were using the computer programs to build stats and build a team like that? Those guys all got to the World Series. Are you saying all those players are better than Mike Trout just because they got to a championship? I mean. One guy can't. I'm by no means saying that like Scott Hatterberg or whatever the guy's name is for the A's. I'm not saying by any stretch that guy's on the same level as Trout. My thing is I just don't feel that I feel like it's so. I've never heard of or seen in my almost 42 years on this earth the level of hard on for a player like Mike Trout that's still playing the game. Well, here's the question
I just don't get it. Like, I mean, you have, I mean, I would almost understand the Bonds comparison more Griffey Jr. level, because you know, their careers are over with, whatever you say about them, whatnot, with the Bonds, for instance, being like more deserving of that kind of accolades. But for me with Trout, I just don't get it. I just don't get the understanding of that.
Let me pose a bigger question. How many Hall of Famers do you think are on the Los Angeles Angels?
Probably none.
Trout?
I don't know.
Probably Trout.
Oh, you mean now? I thought you meant in the past.
No, now.
Yeah. Albert Pujols.
Okay, 2. So Pujols, who is at the very end of his career, to say the
right,
best.
He'll probably go in as a Cardinal.
Yeah, but let's be honest about Pujols. He was a Hall of Famer 10 years ago in the beginning of his career.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
He hasn't put up Hall of Famer stats in the past 10 years. Trout is in his prime. Now look at Mickey Mantle. Every team he won a championship with, how many Hall of Famers were on his teams? 4? 5? I mean, you got 5 Hall of Famers on one team.
Let's compare Mickey Mantle's pitching staff to the Angels pitching staff.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're Whitey Ford on the Angels.
Yeah, you got arguably the best catcher to ever play the game, Yogi Berra. You got for his whole career playing alongside of him. You also got Whitey Ford. You've got what I can't think of his name. The other pitcher. Rizzuto. I mean, each team that won a championship there, you could probably name off at least three Hall of Famers from each title run. Where Mike Trout has literally been on an island his whole career.
Right.
I mean, now imagine this: would you be having that same argument if you took Mike Trout and put him right now on Los Angeles Dodgers?
That's true.
Then you'd be saying this guy's a god. I mean, when they're ringing up championships and they're setting records of how many games won in a single season because no one can touch that offense with that pitching. That's basically how it was for Mantle. I mean, I'm a Mantle fan. I think he was awesome. I have my own theories about the whole steroid stuff, but I just think you can't discredit Mike Trout's stats. The guy's a stud.
This is a good conversation we're having. I like this. A lot of ideas, a lot of deep dives. This is good.
Forget the stats. Just watch him play.
Yeah.
I mean, he's the best player I've watched in a long, long, long time.
Absolutely. I mean, the only one better.
He could run, he could field, he could throw, he can hit for power, he could hit for average. Doesn't have the highest average, but combine that with his power, I'll take his batting average.
He's hitting, 301, 302, something like that on average. That's a pretty solid batting average. I mean, I might be off there.
I'm not sure what his average
for a power hitter to have an average that high, that's pretty amazing. But, I mean, in modern era, I can only name one player better, and obviously that's Anthony Rizzo, but I mean.
Oh, yeah.
I'm a big Anthony Rizzo fan, but he's certainly not better. But
I got to throw my guy
I know you've been
out
drinking now, Sean.
Yeah, I'm a few Coronas in at this point.
You don't want to get too big on the Rizzo bandwagon. You have to pay more for the cards. You want to be like, no, he's awful. He's washed up. So you get more chances on those cards.
No doubt.
So they said Trout's at 304, I guess, career average right now, which is no slouch.
Yeah.
At the plate. So
no,
and that's all hitting for power.
Absolutely not.
And he averages 40 home runs a year.
It's not
consistently.
Yeah, I mean, dude's a beast.
For a power hitter, that's a good average.
I'll take him on the Cubs any day.
So
he's not up there with Vlad Guerrero or anybody, but
yeah, he's not swinging at the ball ever hits the plate and bounces up.
He was like 3
So let me ask you all this. This is what I haven't really heard a lot.
I think he was at 321 or 327.
Yeah, you're talking senior,
he was
right?
Up there.
Vladdy senior.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, senior.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, but he wasn't a power. He wasn't quite the power hitter though. He only hit 20 some on average, probably mid-20s. Did he average higher than that? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean he wasn't a successful fielder, but Babe Ruth. What made Babe Ruth so incredible is he had a 342 lifetime batting average on top of all those home runs.
Yeah, and he could pitch.
Retirement, he led all time in strikeouts until Mickey Mantle broke it. And so to strike out that often and to hit that many home runs and to still have a 342 batting average is insane. or 340, 342, I believe.
It kind of makes you question.
Batting
kind of makes you question the stats, though, or how they were keeping the stats in that time.
I don't know.
I mean, if you look how Babe Ruth
the one thing
were
that
to everybody else in that era.
But when you talk about Babe Ruth, you got to understand he played the first 6 years of his career. Not only did he start out as a pitcher and have less at bats, he spent the first 6 years of his career playing with the dead ball. I mean, playing with the dead ball. The year he hit 30 was astonishing because I believe it was a year before they went to the more lively ball, and nobody ever even approached 30. I think I think it was Ned Williamson's record he broke, and he had 19, I believe. And so I mean, this guy was just head and shoulders when it came to home run hitting.
So, question for you, John: how come Ted Williams is never in this discussion?
And they played in longer ballparks, bigger ballparks.
How come nobody ever puts Ted Williams in this discussion? I mean, the guy was amazing and took years off to go fight in a war, came back and was still amazing.
Well,
I mean,
I'll tell you why, in my opinion, and that is because, and this is one thing I don't like about discussing baseball, is baseball fans are overly concerned with longevity and your total stats at the end, right? So how could you compare Sandy Koufax, who played 10 years, to Nolan Ryan, who played 20 or 21? Yeah. He played twice as long. Of course he's going to have more strikeouts. Of course he is, and that hurts guys like Stan Musial and Ted Williams because they missed years of their life. So their total stats. Mm-hmm. Anybody that's a baseball fan knows that Ted Williams is one of the greatest players that ever lived. I mean, him and Darryl Strawberry probably had the two prettiest swings ever. But Ted Williams is, one of the greatest of all time, hands down, possibly the greatest hitter of all time. I wouldn't go all around player because I just don't think he was defensively the player that some of these other guys were. But yes, possibly the greatest hitter of all time, no question. But he doesn't have the total stats, right?
For sure. For Darryl Strawberry, he had the added help of being on cocaine every game. So, I mean, playing at a different level there.
Right.
So, you all mentioned this, and I don't know how you all feel, but, we obviously saw that this week MLB has brought over the Negro League stats into the mix, and they're going to consider those actual physical, like what you can see with your own eyes, and you can have hard copies and add those in as actual stats with Major League Baseball stats. So there's always this argument of like trying to understand what is actual fact opposed to fiction, because there's a lot of fiction when it comes to Negro League stats. Like case in point, the 900 home runs by Josh Gibson and all that kind of stuff.
He did that in one game, right?
Right, one game with his eyes closed and his right hand tied behind his back. So when you hear that, and like you're already hearing rumblings from certain pockets of the interwebs that are like journalists or whatever saying, why are they not? And I do want to give the MLB some credit so far that they're only taking the actual stats you can actually physically, see and use as factual, opposed to lore. But there's already some rumblings that like certain stats are not going to be considered to give them even more of a bigger boost towards the other players. So with that being said, how do you all feel with those stats being included? And do you agree or not agree with we have to have the actual bookkeeping to be what we go based off of, not hearsay, not there's one game, this one guy did this, and there was 5 people there, and they all confirmed it, and all this kind of stuff. Because you hear a lot of this, like, well, they played a lot of these, like, barnstorming this. They played in other countries. They did this, they did that, and those things should count too.
Yeah.
And so where were you all at on all this?
I believe the MLB is going to do their own averaging of those stats to bring them over. So I mean, if their statisticians are going to look at them, break them down, and kind of create their own average, I think it'll be somewhat more accurate. I don't think they're just going to take the gossip out there and bring that over. So I think it'll be pretty accurate. on a bigger picture, I'm stoked about it because I feel like those guys, this should have happened a long time ago. I've heard some people argue it, saying it's not likely, but my question would be, how do you know which league was truly better? I mean, it's easy to say the MLB was better, but were they? I mean, you look back at that era before, or I could say right after they integrated. Once they integrated, the black players that they brought over were top tier. I mean, they were right there with the best players in the MLB, and some of them arguably the best players in the MLB. So, I mean,
and some of them weren't even in their primes anymore.
Yeah, I mean, they were out of their primes, So I think it's
like Satchel Paige. I think he was 60 when he came to the.
He was actually like he was like on a drip. He was on some drip, and he got off and took it off and came in there a bit.
Well, I mean,
yeah, he was like 45 or something, wasn't
he? Yeah, he really was in his 40s.
Well, yeah. I mean, he would never tell anybody his age. He could have been 50 for all we know.
Yeah,
sure. Yeah, that's true.
But I mean, I love the history of the Negro leagues, and I love the history of all leagues. The thing is how do you compare? Are the stats like, are they anecdotal? Are they actual?
Right.
And then I believe that if you're going to go that, if we're going to take different leagues, how about the Japanese league? Does that make Sadaharu O the all-time home run champion? And do we count Ichiro's hits in Japan?
Yeah, I don't.
No, it's not that I'm for or against. It's just it gets convoluted.
Yeah.
And then what other leagues can we count? I mean, because there were other good leagues. There were some great ball players in Japan. Nobody thought so until Ichiro and some of these other guys came over here and could show. At least Ichiro would never do anything in the majors, right?
Yeah, but
he came up when he was 27 years old and still got over 3,000 hits, starting at 27.
But I think that's where you can make that argument for the other leagues is Ichiro was basically, as of this point, a one and done. I mean, it wasn't like when they integrated black players in, immediately you had Jackie Robinson, one of the top players in the league, Willie Mays, arguably the best player in the league, Ernie Banks.
Oh, well, there's no
these guys, Roy Campanella, that came in.
Question about that.
So, I mean, that's where I'm just saying, and just the history of the baseball being here in the U.S. for the length that was played. I understand what you're arguing. I just don't think it'd be easier to shoot holes in the other leagues than the Negro League compared to the MLB.
Why? The other leagues probably have better stats.
Well, Japanese league, for one,
I don't know.
They play with a smaller baseball.
For these barnstorming tours, like, are they accurate? That's the question.
Well,
do they even have them all? I'll bet you Satchel Paige won way more games than what's even on paper.
Yeah, but you're not comparing apples to apples.
He could be the greatest pitcher that ever lived.
The Japanese leagues use a smaller baseball, so that wouldn't even be an apple-to-apple comparison. That's why a lot of the Japanese players have struggled here with pitching and hitting, with ball being different size. It's a big adjustment for guys been playing with. It'd be like playing with a women's basketball your whole life, and then all of a sudden you're handed a men's basketball to play in a game. It's a big adjustment.
Oh, now. Let's not talk about Vanderbilt football.
Convoluting this discussion.
Right. Well,
how about the all girls league?
Right.
Yeah. Hey, bring them over. Let's see what happens.
Some of those women have batting averages. I mean, all these leagues need it acknowledged.
I got this pretty little thing. Try and jump in here for a second.
What's up, Mozzie?
All right. She had enough of fame.
This is something that's going to be like highly debated, heated.
Sure.
I love baseball. I love all the leagues of baseball. I love baseball history. I love stats. I know all those players that were great. I collect a lot of the Negro League players. Always been fascinated with that league. No question about it. Some of the greatest players that ever played came from that league. There's no question about it.
Yeah.
I guess for me, just to kind of maybe close it out, or just my 2 cents, is that if it is, like you said, it's not anecdotal. It's not. It's the actual stats. It's the actual stats.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to take something away from somebody else, you just want to make sure it's accurate. That's all.
Right.
I mean, if you're going to say
that's my
Josh
point.
had 800 home runs and he's the home run leader, then does he have 800 home runs?
Yeah.
Right. And I mean, like, I think I saw a report today that, but to what Sean was saying, that they're using, MLB's using their own statisticians or whatever. They're combing over the records or whatnot. And right now they can only come up that he has like 290 something home runs. I believe is the count so far, like actual verifiable home runs.
I think that's
and
the
that's
key,
what I
Jason,
think, John.
is they're going by the verified, what's kept on multiple books.
Right, and that's what I want to go back to what John was saying, was because if they can verify it and it's like 100% verified, then you should add those back. They slot them in, and wherever they get slotted in at, that's where they're at. But I have a problem with people
I don't
trying
know if it was most.
What's that?
Sorry.
I was just going to say, I don't know if it was most of their games, but a lot of their games were barnstorming tours. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
is that correct?
That would be my biggest question too.
So,
do you?
I mean, Babe Ruth barnstormed a ton. So you had Babe Ruth barnstorming home runs in,
right?
And that's what I was saying. Where do you draw the line with all these stats? This is why I don't like stats to begin with too much. I think stats don't tell the whole picture. They don't tell the whole story. They just don't.
And I think that's what I was saying because when I'm like reading through these articles today and yesterday, for that matter, they were making these comparisons or these examples, like you said, barnstorming here, playing in other countries, and they're trying to, and the way the article's written is like saying, well, only the Negro League players experience this. And I'm like, no, all the MLB players were doing the exact same thing during the same time. They were barnstorming, they were playing in other countries and all this kind of stuff. So you got to draw the line to what actually, they can verify that were actual, sanctioned games between two teams that were, and then those stats, and then you slot them in, and then wherever they fall. You can't just keep throwing this net out and just keep making the net bigger and bigger and bigger to try to make the stats to fit some narrative, which I don't like, because I feel like right now the way things are, they're trying to make a narrative to be like, well, this is our chance to really strike with the irons hot, to be like, these guys, we got the raw deal 100 years ago, 80 years ago. So now we can like try to get them in there and like, move the stats around and try to like show who was the best players. And I'm like, we need to worry about what's verifiable and then let the chips fall wherever they may. So that's kind of like where I'm at with it. But when I start seeing people making up like all these extended nets that they're throwing out, it makes me a bit nervous, because you can do that with all aspects of the game. And then, like you said, it gets convoluted, and then you water down what actually matters. So I don't know. That's just my.
Hey, I got a question for John on this subject. Kinda. You collect some really rare, odd stuff sometimes. Is there a Josh Gibson Player Day card? I've never heard of one.
Yes, there is.
There is,
and it's one of my dream cards. But it sells for like 27,000, probably more now.
Yeah,
it's a Cuban issue from I want to say 1927-ish, I believe.
Yeah.
That's the only one I know of.
Is he on the Grays?
A lot of the Negro League players, if you want to get them, Ray Dandridge and those kind of guys, you have to go to the Cuban issue cards.
Okay. Is he, I don't know much about those cards at all. Is he wearing a Grays uniform?
It's a Tolos or something.
Okay.
I'm sorry, what?
Is he wearing a Grays uniform on that card?
You know what? I don't think so. I think it's
I think it's Cuban.
I don't know.
I think it's a Cuban.
Well, it's not a distinctive uniform, I don't think. That it's something like, I can look it up. It's something like Tolos, or it starts with a T. Tolos, or something along those lines. That's the name.
Just put it on there.
Issuer. And it's a beautiful card. It kind of looks like a nicer Burke Ross, with a nicer image, a clearer image. It's a nice card. Man, nice. I'd love to have that card. I've been watching it over the years. It's just totally out of my range.
Yeah.
But
I think that's out of most people's.
No, Sean is not. Sean will buy one after we get off of here.
I gotta get my Grays hat in honor.
Oh, that's awesome.
There you go. Yeah.
Because two of the greatest Negro League teams were the Grays, from Homestead outside of Pittsburgh, and the Crawfords, also from Pittsburgh. And the 1933 Crawfords are considered by many to be the greatest team ever assembled. It had Satchel Paige, Josh Gibson, and Cool Papa Bell on the same team. And, of course, Cool Papa Bell, they said, could turn off the lights and be in bed before it got dark. He was so fast.
Wow. Nice.
Now is that verifiable?
Is that verifiable, though? Right?
I'm going with
so
the
question I have now
to kind of Bell's autograph.
That'd be, but to switch gears a bit. So I know winter meetings are going on right now. They're getting ready to talk about people getting traded, not getting traded. What are you all looking at for 2021? Oh, what do we have there? Is that Cool Papa Bell?
I can't read it.
Oh, Satchel Paige.
Oh, nice.
Nice.
Yeah, one of my prized possessions, man.
That's awesome. Man, that is cool.
John,
So
I just want to say
I got a collector, but when I had a chance
I got
to
a
get
birthday
his,
coming up. I'm just saying. I mean,
I was gonna say my birthday's coming up first.
You know what? I'll do what these guys do on eBay. I'll take a picture of this and frame it and send it to you.
Hey, that's good enough. That's probably as close as I'd ever get to owning one.
Hey, right here, Prestige Collectibles, Jimmy's baseball cards. I think I told you about them, John. But he said the 50-51 Total Teros Josh Gibson card.
Oh, 50-51.
That's what he was talking. Yeah.
You know what? Is that from his playing days? That might be after his playing days.
Yeah, his playing days were
Prestige.
Yeah.
Late 30s, right?
Right.
Early 30s?
Do you know who that player is?
I can't.
I'm asking Prestige. He's a Japanese collector. I think he's on YouTube. I just
check.
subscribed.
If anybody is interested in anything Japanese card related or like American players in Japan, man, this guy right here, Prestige Collectibles Japanese Cards, man, is legit. I definitely highly recommend and he's into the vintage mostly. It's awesome. His channel's amazing. Here's another thing you said right here, John, just so you see it. Right there.
What's he saying?
$51,000.
That's just a drop of the bucket for old Mangini collection.
No doubt. He's probably got that in his chest breast pocket.
That's right, 50-51.
Yeah, that's his wallet card.
You know what? Is that? But I think is that past his playing days? I think that's past his playing days. Didn't he play in the 30s?
It has to be.
40s?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would think his playing days were like maybe late 30s.
So to go back to your question, then I don't think he does have a card from his playing days.
So,
but that's his. I believe that's his oldest, and certainly that's an expensive card, and one that would be great to have regardless.
Oh yeah.
Right. Well, there you go. $51,000 later, it could be yours if the price is right.
Yeah, like I said, I saw one for $27 about a year or two ago, so that makes sense with the rise of the card prices.
Sure.
Yeah, for sure.
So
what were you asking, Jason?
So my question is that with winter meetings either going on or about to go on or whatnot, with like you got the Lindors, you got the Trevor Bauers, you have people like that. What do you all see in 2021 as new teams for new players, or people maybe staying the same? They're not going to make many moves. What do you all think that's going to be for 2021? Since 2020 was such a crazy year. So what do you think that some of the new moves are going to be made with a few guys on the market, or do you think a lot of people are just going to hold steady? What about the money? Are people going to be willing to dish out a lot of money for these guys with so much uncertainty still, or what do you think?
So the first thing, there's already been a lot of awesome moves that are happening right now. The Mets' new ownership, that dude's being aggressive. I can't think of that guy's name. But he's a billionaire. He's spending some money right now. He's signing some players. So a lot of these free agents that everybody had locked up thinking they were going to specific teams, I think this guy's kind of shaking it up, and I think it's great for the league to have a new player with basically infinite pockets that can go in and do some stuff. Before I get into predictions of players, with the whole MLB not spending, this thing has been one thing that's kind of getting me fired up this year. Is they keep going on these interviews and saying they've had these losses and this and that and the other, when you find out that it's really not actual losses, it's less profit. They're saying losses to profit. So they're still profiting. They're just not making the profit they projected. So they're claiming that as losses when they're going on the media and talking. And then they're like, well, we got to cut costs. We got to cut players. And it makes absolutely no sense, especially coming off a weird year, a cut season. These guys, it kind of blows my mind on what's really happening. I think a lot of teams are just kind of abusing this to bring down their cost and take full advantage of their wallet for in the next year. I think there's going to be some major players next year. I think there's a few teams that are really setting themselves up. If their players are healthy, it's going to be an insane year to watch. I think the Padres are going to be just nasty next year. I think the Chicago White Sox, as much as I don't like to say that because I'm a North Side fan, I think the South Side is the South Side's going to be next to impossible to beat if they come out healthy. They got a lot of young talent, and probably the biggest projection I have for free agents is the Trevor Bauer. I honestly believe Los Angeles is going to scoop him up. I think he's going to be an Angel. They made 2 moves last week to pick up 2 cheaper, I guess I'd want to say, or less expensive pitchers. Raisel Iglesias, I can't remember the other guy's name. Morrow, maybe. That might be wrong. But I think they're going to end up signing Bauer and really making a run at it next year. So that's about all I got.
What about you, John?
Guys, I'm sorry. I'm going to have to get going. I just want to thank you for letting me be part of this.
Okay.
And just to answer that question very quickly, I think it'll be business as usual. I don't think I think it's just going to be business as usual.
BAU, baby. All right, man. John, thanks for hanging out, dude, as always.
Great talking to you, John.
All right, take care.
You too.
Yeah. All right, so Sean, you had some good interest. You had some really good, interesting things to say. First, I didn't know Raisel Iglesias, who was a Reds pitcher, is now with the Dodgers. I must have missed that.
Not Dodgers. Angels.
The Angels.
Yep.
So, and then I know that they're talking about, did Real Muto go to the Mets? Is that what I'm hearing?
No, McCann went to the Mets. They signed McCann.
Okay.
I don't know if Real Muto's signed with anybody yet.
I don't think he has, to my knowledge. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I'm very interested to see because, I really want to get excited about baseball. I know this year, as you know, and I don't want to get down a rabbit hole because it's not really what this is about. I really want baseball to kind of just like focus on baseball. And I think, like you said, you were saying about the owners, talking about the whole money thing. Is it profit or loss? And for me, and I agree with that too, to a certain degree. Obviously, I want to focus on baseball. I want to focus on social justice issues. I want these outside things going on. I hope we see that moving forward. But I mean, I'm really anxious to see where Lindor ends up. Like you said, Bauer with maybe the Dodgers. Real Muto, who's probably the best.
Bauer with the Angels.
Oh, Bauer with the Angels. Could you imagine him going to the Dodgers though?
Wow. They'd never get beat again. I mean,
they would. They'd be set for 5 years, easy.
Yeah, I did watch it. So I got to interrupt real quick and throw out a thing I heard. It kind of excites me. I watched a thing on Trevor Bauer with somebody breaking down his stats for this year. And there's some claims that he went to the dark side after all his barking and chirping and was using pine tar to get a higher spin rate this year. And that's why he was able to elevate his stats higher than he even predicted he could using pine tar.
Whoa.
So
there's a hot take for you.
Yeah, but the thing is there's half the league uses it, pitchers. And they don't really say anything unless it's blatantly obvious. I mean, Garrett Cole this year it was obvious it was on his hat. And he kept grabbing his hat. And
so we got a lot of Gaylord Perrys now with the Vaseline or whatever. They touch it on on their belt or whatever and put it on their ball, and there you go.
Well, spin rate and velocity makes unhittable pitches. So,
right,
the more spin you can get, more grip you can get on the ball, the more spin you can get, and that's how some of these pitchers are just elevating to ridiculous numbers overnight, coming off rough seasons and stuff. I mean, Garrett Cole did it when he went to the Astros, had arguably his worst season ever, I think. Went to the Astros and then had like his best season ever.
But wasn't that during his last year of his contract too, right?
Yep. Same with Bauer.
Same thing with, I was going to say, same with Bauer. Yeah. So where you, let's just say that's provable. Let's say that can be.
I'm losing you. You're froze.
Houston, we got a problem.
Yep. There you are.
Yeah. So where are you at on that topic?
You know how I feel about it. I say if you're gonna have a little bit of cheating, let it all. I still want to see guys juiced up out of their minds, hitting 600-foot bombs, throwing 150-mile-an-hour fastballs. Let them have some pine.
So you're saying you're basically saying that if you want to play the game clean, if you want to play the game not cheating, then that person's a sucker.
No, I'm saying the MLB as an organization either has to decide one or the other. If we're going to let them cheat, let them all cheat. If we're not going to let them cheat, you got to make examples of the people cheating. But either way, I'm going to watch it and I'll enjoy it all the way. I'll enjoy some straight up baseball. I love it. But if you want to let them all get on hopped up and using pine tar and everything else, let's do that too. I'll watch.
Right.
Let's see what happens.
So where are you at with Cleveland Indians? Because they said this year they're going to still be the Indians, I guess. But by 2022, they're changing their name officially. So, I mean, we already know they went from the Chief Wahoo to the Block C, which is like the most ridiculous thing in the world. But I mean, what's your view on it? Because I'll just say, obviously, I'm sure no one's surprised by me saying that I think it's ridiculous. It's absolutely. I appreciate the Atlanta Braves have already come out and said they got in front of it and said we ain't changing. Yeah. We're not changing anything. We're gonna be the Atlanta Braves. We're gonna let them do the tomahawk chop. We're not changing anything. Yeah. And you know what? Nothing happened. The world kept spinning. Everything was fine. They made it unequivocal. They weren't gonna be bowing down. And the world kept spinning. Everything turned out to be fine. So I'm like, what about the Cleveland Indians did the same thing? What about they just said, it's not an option. We're the Indians. If you don't like it, okay, that's fine.
I'm all for it.
But where are you at?
I'm all for it. I mean, what the heck is offensive about an Indian, saying Indian? I mean, half my family are Miami Indians and very high bloodline. So, like second and third generation. So, they are proud to be called an Indian, and right. To call a team an Indian after what was native to that area, it's all garbage to me when you start getting into that stuff. Like if they were, I've seen people wearing a shirt Caucasians. Hey, I think that's hilarious. Let's do it.
The Cleveland Caucasians, dude. I would love it. I would buy that shirt. I'd buy two.
Yeah. I could understand if it was something offensive, Sure. But what is offensive about Indian? Right. Saying the word Indian. It's like, let's just nitpick and change and change. And no one's asking.
It's celebrated. That's my problem. It's a celebration of it. It's not meant to, it's not used in a negative way. It's not used in a way to make fun or to lessen or to demonize or anything. It is, if anything, encouraging and a positive. Mm-hmm. It's kind of shocking that you would not want that representation either, because what's going to happen next? You're going to have all these iconic mascots and logos completely whitewashed, for a lack of a better word.
Well, that's
out of sports, and then there's going to be you're going to have nothing left, and then you're going to have all these great mascots and logos that were in everybody's visual all the time now is considered. No one even knows who they even exist. They never exist. They never happened.
Yeah. Well, the craziest thing about it is people who are Indians American Indians. They're not the ones complaining about it.
Right.
It's
they're not.
white people. It's other ethnicities. I don't even know if it's other ethnicities. It's mainly white people, offended white people that are.
Right.
This is who's it offensive to? You?
And then the other argument I would make,
everything. I mean, you're offended by a wrap on a coffee mug. It's these people. They just.
And the other thing is the people who are saying they're offended are not even fans. They're not fans of baseball. They're not fans of Cleveland Indians. They don't care anything about the sport. They just want to pick. They just go from one thing to the next and try to take each thing down as they go. They have no investment in the actual game of baseball or in the team. They just want to tell you you're bad and evil for doing this, and that you're this, this horror monger, evil monger of terribleness, and they want to take it away. But they're not actually fans themselves. And I want to address real quick. I don't know, New York Yanks fan 7. He said Chief Wahoo was perceived a negative depiction. But if you do the historical reality of Chief Wahoo, it was based off of a Native American who was a part of the Indians organization back in the, I don't even know, 20s or 30s or something. It was based off of his depiction of him. And then on top of all that, it was something that was not perceived as all negative to anybody. No one ever used Chief Wahoo in a negative way. Again, it was not used in a negative connotation. So it goes back to that point. Where was it before? Well, it's only in the last 5 or 6 years that everybody's gotten all butthurt about it.
Well, I mean, to be honest, I look at it as a negative percent. It's a cartoon image of an Indian. It's an exaggeration. It's no different than watching a cartoon image of South Park character being an Cartman being an exaggeration of a chubby white kid. I mean, it's kind of goofy to look at. That'd be like me watching Looney Tunes and watching Elmer Fudd and being like, no white people look like that.
Exactly.
You're making it's just it's or
the Cowboys.
I mean, it's
the Cowboys
pushing too hard.
Right, people dress up like a cowboy, or they're fighting Irish here for us Hoosiers in Indiana, and having this little Irish green guy and white dude running around like a midget, running around all this stuff. It's
Leprechauns aren't real. We need to change that. I mean, it's silly.
Right, where does it end? Yeah. And again, I think it's all based on context. And if it was meant to be hurtful or disparaging or mean-spirited, I can kind of see where you're coming from. That is not the case with the Chief Wahoo. It's definitely not the case with the Indians. And then, for instance, Florida Seminoles, they have a contract with the Seminole Nation, and they're fine with it. But the thing is, there's people complaining about it, to go back to your point, and it's not the Seminoles, it's liberal, whiny white people that are complaining about it. But it's already been agreed with the Seminole Nation that the Florida has no problem with this. Yeah. But that goes back to what we're talking about. So.
Yeah, it's just. Everything's political now. There's nothing off limits. I mean, eventually it's going to go to whatever color your T-shirt is. You can't wear certain color T-shirts. It's just going to keep going, because what it is it's a handful of people who found they have power the more they scream. And as long as people keep caving into them and letting them shout them down, then we're going to keep dealing with this. And it's just going to keep going on. It'll be another thing and another thing. So for me, I think, like I said, if it were a negative depiction, truly, or if it were something that is just insane, I can understand, I mean,
sure.
Yeah, like Reese Card Ranger says here, who wants to be called a Yankee anymore? Yankee for a lot of people up north is a derogatory term. So, but I don't care. I mean, who?
Right.
It's silly. It's just, like I said, I feel like it's not even worth giving the energy or the brain power to think about it. It's a handful of people that found power by shouting others down.
Right. And I wonder, to go to kind of to follow with what you're saying is let's say Cleveland bent the knee to the social justice message of the day. So let's say people who go to Jacobs Field, if that's even what it's called anymore, it's probably not, but they go to the Cleveland Stadium, and you have people come, they bring war drums, or they come dressed in a headdress, or they wear the Chief Wahoo hat or T-shirt. Are those people get to come into the stadium and still support their team? Or now are they going to be stopped at the gate and told to turn around and go back and change, or to put that away because we're not accepting that? I'm
well,
like, these are your hardcore fans. These are your hardcore fans that are doing that. So now, are you going to kick these people, these hard-working, paying fans out for people who have already moved on to the next thing? Or are you going to let these people come into your stadium and support their team?
Well, that's rhetorical. You know the answer to that. They will. And it's the age-old saying that we hear about everything: get woke, go broke. That's why it's insanity to me. It makes no sense. Like, it doesn't make sense in a business atmosphere. They say it's for a moral atmosphere, but a lot of it makes no moral sense. Like I said, if it's really that big of a deal and they want to change it, I'm all for the whole Caucasian thing. I can get behind that.
That'd be my new favorite team. I'll be the biggest hilarious Cleveland Caucasian fan ever.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not that easily offended, so I just don't understand. Well, see you later.
See ya. Somebody was offended. Somebody got offended real quick with me.
Bye, Felicia.
But I think that honestly, when it's all said and done, you're gonna push more people away than you're gonna have people welcoming them into for a team or for a game like baseball who has a hard time getting eyeballs on the screens or butts in the seats. By your hardcore fans have been with you from the thick and thin, and then you start making these earth-shattering changes for a lot of people. I think you're going to start finding that what little goodwill you had might start becoming dried up. And what's going to happen then?
Yep. No, I agree. I mean, I think we should hop onto something else. I think beating a dead horse with that conversation.
Beating it. You hear what Victor said. I agree. Eventually, everybody's going to be like those airbrush uniforms, like in the Panini cards.
Yeah.
That's exactly.
They're just going to be plain. This is going to be the Chicago blue and the Chicago black, and then people will be offended by that. So
I'm sure. Well, honestly, and we'll move on to the next thing, but I will just say I'm surprised things like the Angels or the Blue Devils still allowed to be, showing religious types of things. So we'll see what's next.
Hey, I got to tell you a story about a Blue Devil. I had a friend I grew up with. I'm still really close with. That they were huge Duke basketball friends, or fans. But his dad and his mom were very religious, and would not let him wear any Duke supportive gear because of the Blue Devil.
The Blue Devils, right? Okay.
Which, when I was a kid, I was like, what in the world? Like, it's a mascot. It's not really like the devil.
It's not really the devil. Right.
But, I mean, people are weird. They get caught up on stuff and they don't want to move on. But
for sure. So let me ask you this. You talked about your Chicago Cubs and the White Sox and, the south side and the north side. Do you see the Cubs making any moves that either you think they're going to actually make moves, or what moves do you think they need to make between now and March?
Between now and March, honestly, they let Almora go. They let Schwarber go. They non-tenured both of those guys. I think they've signed a couple lower-end players like that. We've got some prospects that are coming up, it looks like. But I don't think they're really going to do anything before March, to be honest with you. I don't see them. I think they're going to play out because most of these guys, their contracts go into 2021 till the end of the year, and some of them 2022 before they even have to worry about it. So I really think that they're going to let them play until the trade deadline. Now, I do agree with the Murph here. Brian's on the block. I do think they got to trade him, but I think it would be kind of silly to do it right now. I think you let him come out, play, drive that value up like crazy, and then trade him towards the deadline at the All-Star break and try to bring in max value with him. But Cubs should trade for John. Oh, no, they shouldn't. He's injured more than Bryant. You got
two guys that have huge contracts on the bench next to each other.
Yeah, I mean, Giancarlo Stanton is a stud, but I mean, Schwarber is
he's
just
only
as productive.
a few months out of the year.
Yeah, I mean, Schwarber is just as productive and half the price. So I don't think that would be a good trade. I think trying to move him for some excellent pitching, maybe one stud and a starter and some prospects would be what I would try to move for, and to try to get the most value out of him there. But I wouldn't do it right now. I don't think you're going to get anything for him. He's coming off a terrible season.
So they have Darvish and they have Hendricks. Is there anybody else that's worth talking about that the Cubs have, or do they need to get at least another 3, if not 4 starter?
Yeah, they need a number. I mean, Darvish is probably going to obviously be the number 1 going into next season. Hendricks 2. Realistically, I think they need to go out and find a really strong 3, possibly a 2 to mix in there, and then a closer. They got Jeffress, but we need some late relief or closers, somebody that can come in and really hold the game down. Advert Azalea had a really, pretty decent season last year. We got Braylon Marquez that I've heard rumors they're going to bring him up next year. I don't think that's going to really happen. He's pretty young prospect, but if they bring him up, he's a kid that throws hard and could be legit. I don't know. Usually takes a couple seasons to work in one of these young guys, but I don't know, man. With the Cubs, it's one of those where, as a fan, it's kind of depressing and sad to talk about because the 2016 basically everybody's on the block. So I hope they re-sign Rizzo. I hope, next year, I hope they keep Rizzo. I hope they keep Baez. Would like to see him keep Happ. Honestly, I want to see Darvish have 2 consistent years.
Back to back, right?
Yeah, Hendricks, I think Hendricks has got more in his tool belt than he's showing. We're stuck with Hayward, I think, for another 6 years or something, 5 years. He's on a long contract. But he had a great season last season. So if he can play like that next year, that'd be awesome. But unfortunately, I think Bryant, it's time to do something with Bryant next season. And as much as I don't want to see it, it just makes sense with Contreras. Moving Contreras, his value's at an all-time high right now. It would make sense to do something with that. And you got Miguel Maya, who's in the minor leagues, who they can bring up in the next year or so. You got Victor Carantini that can kind of fill the position. So we have options there, but I'd love to see him go out and get some solid pitching. And, like the comment earlier, like a Giancarlo Stanton. I'd love to get a Stanton, but 5 years younger.
Not Stanton. Right. Yeah. A younger version, a healthy younger version of Stanton.
Yeah. Yeah. If we can find somebody that's young that has that kind of pop that can come in and really be a danger in that lineup, that would be optimal.
What about somebody like Lindor? Do you see that being an option?
Oh, that'd be a dream pickup. Trade Bryant, get Lindor, have Lindor and Javi working 2 and short. That'd be entertaining at the least. I mean, that would be awesome. I don't see it. Cubs are cheap. Cubs don't like this. Cubs are the weirdest team on the planet. They won't spend money on a superstar. They'll go sign a mid-tier guy and pay him like a superstar.
Right.
It never makes sense to me, but Cubs have the weirdest payroll I've ever seen. So we'll see. How about you and your Yankees?
Dude, honestly, I'm sure this is not going to come as a shock to anybody who's watching or watch it later, is that this whole past year, I haven't really watched, so I have no idea about the Yankees or the Reds or anything a lot about what baseball was looking like the entire season. Like I was saying at the beginning or a few moments ago, it's like I'm really, cautiously optimistic that we're going to be able to get back to this baseball, the way it is, the way it should be. and all that, and not to go, like I say, get off topic. So if that's the case, I'd probably be more knowledgeable. But honestly, I know that the few things I had heard about the Reds and the Yankees, a lot of them didn't, Garrett Cole didn't have a good season. Sanchez, not so much, with the Reds. Vital didn't do anything. Like all their young prospects, like Aquino, all those guys really didn't do a whole lot. Shogo Akiyama didn't do much. I mean, he ended up being okay towards the end. Like he did all right, but he by far was not great. He was, he was probably above average, but on the Reds, that's not saying much. Moustakas didn't do anything. Nick, whatever, the guy who came over from the Detroit Tigers, we got, or he was with you Cubs for a short.
Dietrich? Castellanos.
Yeah, Nick Castellanos. He didn't really do much, and whenever they did do anything, they didn't do it together. So we never could get any traction going because they could never have everybody sync up, which, with baseball, it's so important to have people get hot at the same time and to have some consistency. So if somebody cools off, you have another guy right behind. It kind of picks up the steam for you.
Mm-hmm.
But that's been the Reds for decades. It's they'll have really hot players, but they don't get hot at the same time, or they have a really hot offense, but their pitching sucks, or vice versa. They'll have awesome pitching. Like the last couple of years, their pitching's been really great, and their defense has been completely just pitiful. So and so we'll see. I mean, I was happy to see the Dodgers have a good win. I was glad to see the Tampa Bay Rays do well. I think that's really good. I think that's good for baseball. That's probably not good financially for baseball with somebody like the Tampa Bay Rays doing well, because it's a market that's pretty much like a dead market that no one really cares about. But I think that's good for, because you have a young team who doesn't have any huge megastars. They don't, able to knock everybody off and almost be able to take out the Dodgers. The Dodgers, they had to, play a little bit harder than you would expect. I mean, they won, but it wasn't a complete walk in the park. They had to bring their A game.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's good for baseball, but, it's nice to see other teams in there except, the Yankees every year or the Astros recently or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's good to see that. So, I'm excited for baseball. It's the only sport I really, and I know you're the same way, really follow pretty religiously. So I'm just excited with the prospects of what's going to happen. I just was hoping that we have a lot of excitement with a lot of big names over the next month or two. Where are they going to go, and whose pockets are going to start, getting deep in the pockets and start throwing out money to get certain players or not.
Yeah.
Do you see any kind of surprises on the horizon with maybe some surprise moves or some surprise trades or anything? Or what stuff you might like to see, maybe not even from the Cubs, just in general?
Yeah. So first of all, I think, I don't know how deep of baseball fans a lot of the people in the comments are, but a lot of the smaller trades that are happening right now and signings are really, really interesting because it's a lot of guys that have really good stats. They're very good, so you could say utility in a sense, utility players, but they're being built on teams that it's that makes sense. That's going to make them tough,
Right.
That's a good ad. So that kind of stuff's been really interesting to me, watching those little trades like that. But there's still the big, you got a couple big ones, Real Muto, you got Trevor Bauer, you got Arenado saying he wants to leave Colorado. I don't know anybody that's going to spend that money for that contract, though.
Yeah, because Arenado almost went to the Cardinals last year, right? And then he decided to stay.
Yeah, I'm not sure on that. I don't remember that, but but I mean that could be a cool pickup for somebody. And then one thing I'm kind of waiting to see is Blake Snell going to leave Tampa?
Yeah.
I've heard a lot of rumors, man. That would be an amazing number 2 or number 1 for Chicago Cubs. As a Cubs fan, it's I know they're not going to spend the money to go get a Trevor Bauer, but I feel like a Blake Snell could be affordable.
Right.
He's a beast. He's had one bad season in the past 3 years, and not even really a bad season. He was injured, I think.
Right.
And then he comes back this year, and he's pretty lights out. That would be pretty awesome. But I don't know, man. I feel like some of the teams that have just locked up some of these really big stars for such a long time on these long contracts that it kind of takes a little excitement out of it. But it's cool seeing the building around them, like the Phillies. I don't know what's going on in Philadelphia.
Oh man!
And like I said earlier, the Padres, man, San Diego, they're making like some sneaky pickups on the low, and I think they're going to be devastating for some people next year. They're going to rock the boat. I mean, you got the White Sox. I think the Angels. I think the Angels are going to build, and they're going to do everything they can to get Trevor Bauer. And he's from L.A., so that makes sense.
Right.
I don't know if he's from L.A. He's from California. But
right. On a completely selfish reason, I would love to see the Angels be a factor because of the Ohtani factor. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I think if you surround Ohtani, like with Trout, also some players that have, obviously, Trout is, heads and shoulders above anybody in baseball, possibly even for sure on his team. But to surround the guys that are kind of like your future or your mainstays, like you said, with the big contracts, they're not going anywhere for a long time, with some actual help, like how much more dangerous they could be. And then on top of that, for purely selfish reasons, how much money you could get off of those cards.
Yeah.
Because all of a sudden then they start winning and they live up to the hype, a lot of respects like that, how much more that'll help you, with your collecting and the stuff that you've already invested in. I think that's really cool because, Pujols is, maybe a year left. I don't even know, how much longer he can go.
Yeah.
And, and how much he might turn into completely like a utility player or like a, part-time player or whatever you might want to say. Because he's, he'd be taking up a spot from a guy who probably could, produce better than him at this point in his career.
Yeah, I think he's got like 3 years left on his contract.
I know. He'll be almost 50 years old.
He's going to be like a Dwight Gooden, man, where he's retired and he's still getting paid 20 years later.
Right, exactly. Well, it's kind of like when you think about, who was I going to say? Satchel Paige, like no one knows how old he really was. Like Albert Pujols, he's never been clear about how old he really is because he was an older player. He was like kind of like in the Ichiro area. He was a few years younger than Ichiro, but he wasn't like 19 when he started. I mean, he was like 24, 5, 6, and here he is like almost 20 years later, still playing. So it's like, how old is he really?
Yeah.
He has to be like 42 or 3, I bet now.
Yeah, and judging by the way he plays, and I think he's going to be one of those guys they're going to have to force to retire. Like I said, like Dwight Gooden, they're going to have to kind of be like, dude, you're out. We'll keep paying you.
Right.
Hang it up. But I don't know, man. I'll be honest. I'm really excited. Like watching the winter meeting information that's coming out and stuff. There's so many moves that can happen right now, and I think that we're probably going to see some big moves that are going to surprise us big time from players that no one saw being moved and stuff like that. Like I wouldn't be that surprised to see, like this might not be as big a move, but seeing like Cincinnati doing something with Sonny Gray. I mean, he's kind of their number one, but I've heard rumors that he's on the chopping block to be traded. What's that say? Everyone leaving California.
Everyone's leaving. Maybe people-wise, but not player-wise, I'm sure.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know, man. I think there's going to be some crazy moves. Obviously you can't ever rule the Yankees out. They've been kind of silent as of right now. I don't know. I haven't heard, but did they re-sign LeMahieu?
I haven't heard that they have, but I haven't followed up with them a lot, in the last couple of days or a week or so. Let me ask you this though. I'm interested because you're a rookie guy. You're a kind of a prospect guy. You kind of keep an eye on either certain players or certain cards that you're kind of like, just kind of picking up when you can. Is there any player that maybe a lot of people aren't talking about that you might think might make an impact this year?
Killing me, Jason. Now I got to tell people we're going to go buy the cards.
Exactly. I'm trying to make you, let the cat out of the bag.
Well, I don't know. So one that I think that people have really overlooked, and I think if the Angels, which I've talked about, make their run at the World Series next year is David Fletcher. I think Jeremy IP. I think David Fletcher is going to be one. I mean, the guy's a stud. If you watch him, you watch his highlights and plays. The kid is amazing. He was a rookie in 19. So you could still get like his autographs, low numbered stuff for really cheap. So he's one I've kind of picked up and been kind of stockpiling on. I like to watch the kid. You don't get to see much on TV, but I think he's going to be the kind of one of them that people overlooked and let it fall through the cracks a little bit. And if they make a playoff run, you really get to see the talent of this kid. He's going to be one. And then for as far as rookies next year, I think you're going to have a giant rush for Joe Adell, Ryan Mountcastle. I don't know, man. If Wander comes up, I don't know if he will. He's still pretty young. I don't even think he's played AAA ball yet. I think he's played AA at best. So I don't know if they'll bring him up yet. But if they do bring somebody like a Wander up next year, you think Lou Bob got people excited? Wander, his cards will be unattainable. I mean, they'll be so expensive. But
right. I just want that kid last name Death Rage. I just want to have him. He might suck. I just want to just hear his name announced over the intercom. Like, and here he comes, number 24, whatever, John Death Rage. I'm like, yes.
Isn't he a Tiger?
Yes. I think so. Yeah. Right.
Or he's in their organization with his prospect. Yeah, no, I saw one of his cards at my LCS. So you've been to my LCS. They have the team boxes where you can go through a lot of prospects and rookies, stuff like that. I was going through looking for Bowman Chrome first cards of players, and that guy's card in there, they actually had his Sapphire in there, and I was like, kind of want to buy this card just because of the guy's last name. But,
man, yeah, dude. We got some really good players coming up with amazing last names. So let me ask you this: when it comes to, like you said, Joe Adell's and the Wano Francos and all that kind of stuff, where do you, as a collector who, like I said, prospecting, but more like, just rookie card, like you said, you sleeve them up, top load them, put them away. Maybe you come back 6 months later, a year later, kind of see what you have. You and I've talked about it. I've seen your process and all that. Where do you, as a collector, or if you do this at all, do you say, I've given this guy 2 years, I've given this guy 4 years, they're not doing anything, moving on? Yeah. Or do you not do that and you hold on 5, 6, 7 years? So I mean, we always talk about space, limited space. Talk about it was a flash in the pan. He never panned out. Blah blah blah. Or where is your line in the sand that you draw that says, all right, I'm moving on from John Smith. He turned out to be a flop. What's your process like?
So I'll start with non-Cubs. So non-Cubs, I keep them, and you've seen my vault. I keep them in the vault for 2 years. So after their second season, if I'm watching their stats, stuff like that, they're not really doing anything, then they go from the vault into just white boxes, and then kind of just stashed away. After usually 4 to 5 years, I'll revisit those, and if those guys really haven't panned out, they're not doing much, then unfortunately I'm going to recycle their top loaders. So they're getting removed from the top loader, and I'm going to use the top loaders for the new batch of stuff coming in. Now for my Cubs, I got to say, I don't have a time limit. Once they go to top loader, they're going to stay in that top loader until that top loader is so yellow and brown that you can't see through it anymore. It's just, I got saw it in my mind. Derek Lee's still going to come back and make a run for MVP.
Derek Lee, right?
It's just I don't know. I'm weird about the Cubs, but all the other teams, I keep to a pretty strict. At 2 years, once they've made 2 seasons in, I try to reevaluate them, see whether they need to be in that cabinet or just go into storage boxes, and then I go through my storage boxes every season and just double check what's in there. and then a herd basically. How about yourself?
I'm kind of the same way. Like, it's so funny because I have what I call my rookie card explosion box. You know, because I don't know if Phil has copyrighted it, so I like to use my quotes because I don't want to get in trouble.
Yeah.
But I have a huge monster box that, like you said, as soon as I pull a rookie card out of a pack, it goes straight into the box. And then, like you said, I'll go back and look at it a year or two, see if it's anything that I want to hold on to. And then if not, I'll usually move it off to like a common box a lot of times. But I will say, over the years, because we've had so many players who turned out to be pretty worth holding on to, at least to see kind of like where they're at with their development, blah, blah, blah. I usually will hold on to them a lot longer than the previous couple of years like I did in the past. And I'll hold on to them for 4 or 5 years. Now, I will say, unlike you with the Cubs and letting them stay in there forever, like I have to go back. And sometimes I have noticed that I might have had a card still from like 2007 and 2009, and I'm like, okay, like they're done. I don't even know if these guys are even playing anymore. Like, I need to move on from this. But like you, like I kind of want to hold on because I always have this fear of missing out if I send the guy down the river too fast.
Yeah.
So it's like, you know, I want to give him at least a handful of seasons, and then also like it's the other side of the coin too is they get real hot real fast. Where I know you, we've talked about this before, and I know a lot of people do this. Like, you're like, man, like a Nick Senzel. Like, he had like that one moment a year ago where like he had like a hitting streak or hit a couple home runs in a row. And his card went from like $10-15 to a couple $100, like boom, like that. And people were selling left and right, and they were making some money off of his card and all that. And I could have done that same thing, but I'm like, man, if I do that and then he ends up sustaining and he ends up actually building momentum, I'm gonna be so upset that I sold the car for $100, $1.25, and now it's $300. Mm-hmm. But then, as we know, most times it ends up being just that flash in the pan, and then now the car's back down to $5 or whatever.
Yeah.
And so it's hard for me to really be able to either one, gauge it, or two, able to let go. And then I did end up just having like, you know, a fire pit card that throws in the fire pit because they ain't worth anything. And I should have struck when the iron was hot, and I just didn't do it. So I always have, for me, it's hard to navigate those waters.
Yeah. No, and I agree. So when you were talking about like guys like hanging on too long, man, I have Jerome Walton rookie cards still in sleeves.
A bit long.
And the only reason I know that is I was going through my Cubs cards the other night, and I was like, oh my, still got those. And sorry, I was laughing while you were talking. I read your comment about the Greg Bird. There's a Greg Bird card that me and JT laugh about all the time. It's been getting shifted around the YouTube world because no one can get rid of it. And it's like a Gem Mint 10. I got it from Filmington. So I sent it to JT. I think JT's pawned it off on somebody at this point. But Greg Bird's hilarious. But so when you're looking at like rookies and stuff, man, to kind of judge flash in a pan, I know it's hard because you never know, really. But one thing I kind of use for me personally is I will go and look at their minor league stats. I go to Baseball Reference and .com and I'll look at their minor league stats. I'm a firm believer that guys really aren't going to outperform their minor league stats. They might, on average, or they might have like a period where they peak above that, but their overall career average, if you compare most guys in their minor league stats, they're kind of like right there. Usually they underperform their minor league stats. You get a few superstars that jump out a bunch, and then you get a few minor leaguers that really plummet way below that. But for the most part, I honestly feel that's a really good indicator of how this player is going to be. I mean, they'll go above it or below it just a little bit, but they usually stay fairly close, and it's usually a really strong representation. Unless you get guys like Barry Bonds come in and juicing, and then all of a sudden they go from being a 20 to 30 home run a year seasoned player to 70, you know.
Right.
But and you will,
different.
Yeah, and you will have guys that they'll really peak, you know, like Cody Bellingers and stuff. But if you really look at their stats in minor league, you get a really, or you know, they're even college ball or whatever, you get a really good view of like what's to come from this player. I mean, their stat line, and you can't look at like a short time period or even a single season. You got to try to look at it as a whole and look at like their career thus far, what their averages have been. At least that's my method. And like I said, it's not guaranteed every time, but
sure. It's interesting you said that. I don't think I've ever, like, I guess, you know, I've never obviously articulated that. I guess I kind of knew in the back of my mind if I would have been, when I hear that, it makes sense because when I was years ago, I used to live in Louisville. And I was, you know, and they're the Cincinnati Reds AAA team, the Louisville Bats.
Mm-hmm.
So they would, you know, they fed into the Reds. And so I saw players like Austin Kearns and Adam Dunn, Willie Mo Pena. A lot of these guys come through there, Homer Bailey, I think, or Andrew Harang, or there's like some of these pitchers. I can't remember everybody. But I saw a lot of these guys come through or they go late or whatnot. And you're kind of exactly right. You know, Adam Dunn was, you know, a home run hitter or a strikeout king.
Mm-hmm.
Austin Kearns had pop, but he wasn't super consistent. You know, there's like that, and you're exactly right. And then when he went to the major leagues, he essentially did the same thing. You know, there wasn't like a huge difference. But, you know, the big difference is a lot of these other guys, I think, you know, if you think about Adam Dunn and Austin Kearns or whatever, they had good careers. I mean, they weren't Hall of Fame careers, but they were, you know, they played for 10, 12, 13 years or whatever. So that's nothing to sneeze your nose at, you know, or whatnot. But the thing I think about is that I feel like now, opposed to then, hey, what's up, Dave? Thanks for popping in. I think the difference is, and maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong or other people who are listening, I feel like back then the teams were still wanting to see them develop and get to that point where they're ready for the major leagues. Where I feel like now we're starting to see a lot of like this pressure to move them fast on a fast track and not let them really develop. And by the time they get to major league level, that's where they're starting to get the development.
Yeah.
And they're not really building that foundation. So we're not getting to see that track record because AA is no AAA. So if you're only going off of like a AA stats for 6 months and they jump right in the major leagues, then, you know, it's going to be hard to see what that really looks like because they're trying to push these guys fast because there's been so much young talent that's been touted that they're like, I feel like they feel like there's a pressure to get those guys up quick.
Yeah.
Instead of letting them develop. I don't know if you feel the same way, but that's just my thoughts.
Yeah, and a lot of great ball players, their career gets ruined because of that. I mean, that's been an age-old story forever, bringing them up too fast. I think a better thing, like when you see the like people, when it comes to cards specifically, people prospecting, going after all the Bowman first. The thing that I've noticed and the thing that is kind of more my wheelhouse is like I said, I spend a lot of time on baseball reference. I want to know guys' stats. I am very interested by stats. It gives me a better overview of a player for the most part. So I focus on a lot of the guys that are kind of quiet, that people, you know, they were good in minor league, but they weren't that superstar. But then you go and you look up some of these guys and look at their stats, and it's like, man, that's got superstar written all over it. Like you look at low strikeouts, high walks, lots of power. I mean, that's a pretty good superstar right there. That's what everybody wants. And you see some of these guys and they get overlooked. And those are kind of the guys that I stockpile a little bit and just wait and let everybody, you know, go out and basically blow their load on all these big superstars. And then I can pick up the things I want to pick up for less money. But it's a long-term game, you know. It's not the quick turnarounds. I'm not in the flipping world. I like to collect more and I flip. So for me, I can get guys that are going to be superstars in a year or two after all the glamour wears off, the guys that didn't pan out. You know, I mean, a lot of people were still spending on Vladdy Jr. I've said from day one, I think Vladdy Jr. is Cecil Fielder reborn. He's going to have big power, but he's a DH at best, or Prince Fielder even, you know. He's going to be injury prone because of his weight. He's going to struggle with it. He's having a hard time adjusting. Yeah, when he does hit a ball, it goes a mile, but he strikes out a lot. He doesn't walk a lot. He's not base running. He's not a strong glove. I don't know how you can look at that and think long-term superstar. I mean, at best, he's a Marcell Ozuna, you know. I mean, he's going to be kind of a liability with his glove, but have power.
Right. And then with a player like that also, and I mean, of course, he could change it around. He can get fit. He can get a little bit more baseball shape than that, and that might change some stuff around. But like you said, the same thing could be said not with maybe the fitness aspect, but Pete Alonso. He came out like gangbusters, and then this year, and I know this year is like kind of a weird year for everything, but this year it was like not the Pete Alonso from the previous year. So it's like, and he doesn't have the same issues with fitness per se, but it's the same idea that everybody got all hot and bothered with the Pete Alonsos and the Vladdy Guerrero Juniors. And then this year they didn't really do much to get you excited. So it's like, people were going crazy financially for those cards. And now it's the same thing with Ohtani for that matter. Yeah. I mean, he was in that same boat. Like everybody keeps waiting for him to get quote unquote healthy as far as his physical, his injury is concerned. But then like he didn't go and do anything this year. So where are you at with that? They're no longer rookies. They're now just ball players. Where do you hold on, or where do you jump ship? Like where is that for you?
For me, it just guys that at that point, because I don't flip everything. I mean, you've seen my collection. I honestly flip maybe 20% at most normally.
And that's what that's what I don't steal from you. You don't know.
Yeah, but I really just hold on to guys I like watching. Like Cody Bellinger. I collect Cody Bellinger on the low. I collect Juan Soto. I collect Mookie Betts. Trevor Bauer. I got a lot of guys that you wouldn't never think I actually collect, but I do just because I really enjoy watching them play and stuff like that. And so for me, it just boils down to, is this somebody that I can get behind that I enjoy watching, or is it just another player that's a star? Like for me, like a Nolan Arenado. I don't collect Arenado. He's good, but there's nothing there for me that gets me like wanting to watch him play ball, So there's really no love lost with it. It just boils down to who do I turn the TV on to watch. Now, while we're paused here for a second, you got to throw. I see Yankees fan comment here. I did see that with Vladdy. You got to throw Joey's comment up on here.
Where Joey's? Let me see. Let me go back and look. Did I
miss something? Joey, age 44. Oh, so I keep looking off screen because I'm reading the comments on my other phone. I'm watching the comments there because I can't see them on my screen because I'm not an administrator here. Yeah, I don't know, Sean. My church league softball stats blow my high school stats away. That had me laughing while you were talking, so I wanted to explain why I was laughing. For some reason, Joey, I believe that, man.
This is pretty funny from Henry. So what's 40 pounds in slabs? Talking about Vladdy Jr. So,
well, based on his cards in about a year, I think it's going to be about $20. 40 pounds in slabs.
So what about a situation where, I've been with you many times at card shows, and, we've talked about this before, so I don't know if we ever did it on here, but we've talked about before where you're going in on you're balling on a budget, but then you decide to throw caution into the wind. And
20 minutes in.
Yeah, right. And then you either blow your whole load at the first table you go to, or, you're like, oh, I got to go get more money, or I'm going to add more to this pile. Like, I'm still here for 2 more hours and I'm done after 3 minutes, whatever. But with all that, we joke around and all that. But the thing is that when it comes to some of these newer guys, prospecting, whatever, rookie cards you might be looking for, when it comes to like buying a slab on some of these guys that you're kind of taking a risk on, right? What are some of the factors that you're looking at to make you pull the trigger so you try to avoid that buyer's remorse?
Yeah.
Because like we talked about the Vladdy Guerrero Jr., like you just said, hey, he's going to end up being like a Prince Fielder. Yanks fan 7's like he dropped 40 pounds. Maybe there's hope for him. So we had to, all of us navigate those waters. But for you personally, when you're looking for those things, like what makes you feel like I'm going to pull a trigger on a guy that's not really proven yet, or have only been proven for a year or two, and makes you feel like you're not like after you, because we talked about buyer's remorse plenty, that you walk away going, you know what, I'm good. That was a good purchase. Let's let this thing ride. Yeah.
So probably the biggest thing is kind of what you said. I don't go after guys with hope. Like I wouldn't go after Vladdy being like, oh, his prices are down. Like he dropped 40 pounds. There's still hope. Like, like I said earlier, you got basically 2 seasons to prove it to me. Even if it's only 1 season in, if they had a good first season. So the factors would be, how did they play? How are they playing? Are there trade rumors? Are there contract signings? Anything like that coming up? Are there injury rumors? And then I take all that into consideration with, when I'm at the table, what's the price of the card? Like there's been a lot of times you've been with me where I go in and I'm like, hey man, I got $100 to spend a day. I come back after the first table and I'm like, well, I just dropped $300. And you're like, what? And it's like, I couldn't help it. I went to buy 1 card and the guy had 6 slabs. And when I bundled them, basically I got them for 30% of eBay comps. So had to kind of pull the trigger. And then I do get buyer's remorse as we walk around all day. But then I always remember, like, a lot of these cards I really didn't want. I just saw the potential in flipping those to get cards I do want later. So I get over it. But and
well,
then there's been some where I've just gotten lucky, like I went in and it was just a player I wanted. So here's a perfect example. Probably a year ago, I was in Fort Wayne at a show with JT, and they had Albert Pujols Topps Traded PSA 9 for $75. And I remember me and JT talking about it, and we were like, that's a pretty good price, but I don't really want to pay that. But so I ended up going and picking it up anyways. And not 6 months later did that card jump up to like $300 or something. It was just like, well, just got lucky there and got it at the right time. But I've also gotten burned by that too. I mean,
sure.
A year ago, I sold a Mookie Betts PSA 10 rookie card for $60 because it was holding steady for like 6 months at that price. And I wanted another card in my collection, so I dumped it to buy a Cubs card. And now I'm just kind of shaking my head about it because I can't find
I should never bought that
reasonable price. Yeah, no doubt. That's probably what I bought, to be honest with you.
Oh man.
Roller
so
chat.
the one thing I noticed also with card shows is because you buy modern and you'll buy vintage. Do you approach your buying either online or at a show differently, vintage versus modern? Or do you kind of look at it the same way? Because I feel like vintage, we're thinking this is an investment because you already know who they are. You already know their stats. They can't hurt themselves anymore or help themselves anymore, for that matter.
Yeah.
But with modern day players, it could go either way real quick, pro or con. So do you look at anything differently when because I know you bought the Reggie Jackson rookie card. I remember that, and you bought some other stuff before. But I mean, how do you look at those transactions versus a modern day card, or do you look at them differently?
Yeah. So the only thing I would really, I definitely look at them differently, but for the most part, it would boil down to, am I buying them raw or graded?
Okay.
If I'm buying graded vintage, I'm looking at it for my PC. So I want a safe card. I'm looking at the card that's in that slab. What's the grade of the card? Does the card actually look that grade? Does it look better than that grade? Is it going to hold its value? I want it in my PC. And a lot of people are like, well, if it's in your PC, why you worry about value? Perfect example. I lost my job in May. I had to sell 70% of my collection to get me through until I got another job. Now
I told you I'd give you $1 a piece.
Yeah, I bet. But now I've been rebuilding. So did I ever want to sell any of my collection? No, but I had to. But it's nice to have that guaranteed value. Slabs help that a lot. So that's a perfect example of why I do worry about value, because you never know what's going to happen tomorrow. If I die, I've made a video in the past. My family can throw these cards online and have a really good idea of what to pump them out to. Now, going back to my buying habits, so vintage, most vintage I'm buying for my PC. So it really boils down to quality of card and price that I'm buying there. Modern stuff, it's a combination. First of all, is it a Cubs card? Because that's PC. And if it's one I really want, I really don't care about the price. I don't care about, I just want the card. So I'm going to buy it. Right. Typically, unless you get crazy on pricing, but non-Cubs cards, then all the previous things we just talked about, I definitely take into consideration. And got to be on top of that, man. It's too easy to get screwed real quick trying to I watch a lot of people prospecting, and it makes me sick to my stomach a little bit. I don't know how you can drop that kind of cash on a gamble. I'm not that risky.
So it's all, and I know like we have Dave in here, I think, and I know John's in here. They just posted, and I know you and I've talked a little bit about this in the past, but my ex-wife, she has a master's degree in business. She has 2 degrees, and one thing she always talked about is that to make money, you got to spend money.
Yeah.
And that's how, and if you talk about that from the business world, you got to be willing to put your business out there. You got to spend the money to get your business going, to push, to get people in the door. So you got to make money. You got to spend money to make money. I kind of think about that same principle when it comes to collecting, is that, if you want to get some quality stuff, you got to shell out some money. You can't just peruse the dollar boxes exclusively to think you're going to be hit some major, cars that will go up in value exponentially,
Uh-huh.
So at some point you have to spend some money. And then, like you said, like with the Pujols and things of that sort, where it may, $75 to you may not be a big deal, but for somebody else, that's a lot of money. But then to somebody like, Dave, $75 is he doesn't even bat an eye. He's more like 750, 7,500. Then he's maybe sweating a little bit, right? And so everybody's different. But, at some point we have to have a limit, because it's still a hobby. It's not like you said, it's not a business. You're not prospecting per se. You might get 10 cards, but 8 of those are for your personal collection. You have 2 to try to recoup some of your money, right?
Yep.
So where do you fall into, where are you at when it's when I say you got to spend some money to make some money? Where's that for you? Where do you feel comfortable spending money when you have your job, everything's okay, your bills are paid and all that? Where do you feel comfortable spending? And it doesn't be a dollar amount, but where in your mind are you thinking, I'm good at spending this kind of money for this card to sit on it because this is for my collection? Or maybe it's a vintage card that you're I can trade this or I can flip this later for another bigger card I want for my collection, but I got to make the investment now because, let's say, let me just think of a player real quick, Johnny Bench. God forbid, but he passes away. That card's going to go up. So you get it now, his rookie card now, and you don't really have an attachment to the Johnny Bench rookie card per se, but you got to spend the money to get there. So where are you at with that thinking? Okay, I got to spend the money now.
Yep.
But how do I feel? How do you feel about that?
Yeah, no, so one big thing I try to express all the time, I don't spend my personal money on cards. I have a couple times, but for the majority, I do not. If I want something, I'm going to sell other stuff to get that card I want. So okay. I'll flip stuff that isn't in my PC. It's not stuff that I'm really wanting to hang on to, or I've always got my eye out. Most of the time when we're joking about me going to these shows and blowing my budget, it's because I went looking for specific things, but I came across somebody selling, and they had a whole stack of cards for insanely low prices. So it's okay, I'll spend extra and I'll pick those up. But I passed on a lot of stuff too because, I'll go to a show, and if I haven't been selling lately, I don't have much cash to spend. So that's how I keep myself in check, so I don't overspend and get myself in trouble. But I have gone to shows sometimes and seen something that I really want, and I'm like, man, I haven't sold anything. I'm going to buy it, and then I'm going to go home and sell some stuff. Or while I'm there, I'll be like, okay, I got the card I want. Now I'm on the hunt to spend some money to buy some stuff I know I can flip and make a profit on to help pay for this card that I just bought.
Well, that's true, but I do remember a couple of times that you told me that you were calling up like Bouncer Joey to see if you get a job at the men's club that night to get a couple singles in the garter belt too, to kind of make things even everything out that night.
Sometimes I get carried away. What can I say?
Right.
But no, I have to, but you know this as good as anybody. I have buyer's remorse every time I go. It doesn't matter if I spend $1 or $1,000. Like, I'm going to have buyer's remorse when we leave, because I'm going to be walking through like, man, I shouldn't have bought that card. I don't know what I was thinking. I'm just built like that. I'll buy anything and I'll have buyer's remorse for, a few hours, and then I'm over it.
Right.
Usually by the time I get home, put it in the collection, I'm like, well, that wasn't a bad purchase.
It looks pretty good sitting there. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, and very few times, and I keep a big enough inventory of raw cards that very seldom am I in a jam where I'm worried about being upside down. I mean, most of the time, if I get something and I overspent what my budget was, or I didn't have that much money in my PayPal, I had to use personal money, I know I can go home, go through my PC, pull out 3-4 cards, and recoup that money that night on eBay. You might have to do it on my couch at my house, because your wife will kick you out, but you'll be able to recuperate, right? Yeah, there's definitely a good chance of that if I get too carried away. That's probably that's probably why I am so conscious about it. But hey, not to cut you off short, my phone is gonna die, and
it's funny you said that mine's about ready to die too.
Yeah.
All right, man. Well, hey, dude, I appreciate you hopping on. I appreciate all you guys being here and watching. Obviously, we had a great night. We had Sean on, John Mangini was on, Doug. Wow, Doug's in Boston. That guy was awesome. It was cool to have him on. So I appreciate everybody hanging out, and we'll do it again. Until next time, peace.